Chapter 24:33. Su Fong fell into the nether river and felt his body sinking. It was as if countless hands were pulling him into an endless abyss. Waves of cold and deathly aura kept attacking his body and devouring his life force. There were also countless cold consciousnesses that burrowed into his mind and wanted to devour his primordial spirit. Chi, just as he was about to lose consciousness. In his mind, a Tao of destiny erupted from the primordial spirit's sea in his divine aperture, and then spiraled up, turning into an invisible divine power. The cold consciousnesses that had invaded his divine aperture were instantly dispelled. Su Fong also suddenly woke up. When he suddenly opened his eyes, he noticed that he was trapped within an icy cold and deathly silent torrent of energy, and he was drifting along with the waves. Beside him, there were countless phantoms that could only be seen with his primordial spirit. There were humans, big goblin, and demons. They were densely packed, and all of them were incomplete. They were madly surging towards him and burrowing into his body. This is the Nether River. Su Fongdao was shocked, and his scalp went numb. Immediately, the divine fire of 9 suns surged out of his body and incinerated all the remnant souls in and around him. Unexpectedly, his yang qi was like a light in the darkness. Countless, layer after layer of remnant souls surged over like a tide. Just a bunch of remnant souls that will sink forever in the Nether River. You want to devour my Su Fong? There were too many remnant souls, but to Su Fong, they were just a little troublesome. He immediately unleashed the divine power of his primordial spirit, which swept out in all directions like a raging storm. Those remnant souls were all shattered and turned into nothingness, disappearing into the torrent. Su Fong activated the power of the world of Yin Yang and broke free from the torrent of heavenly way power around him and flew upwards. In the Nether River, there were not only astonishing shackles, but also a kind of heavenly way power of reincarnation was flowing. Although Su Fong's cultivation was suppressed, it was not suppressed by much. After all, the power of his yin-yang world was a kind of heavenly Tao power, and it contained the power of heavenly Tao order. The shackles in the Nether River naturally did not affect him much. After flying for an unknown period of time, Su Fong broke through the shackles of the torrent and had a feeling of breaking out of the water. He looked over. He noticed that he was in a space-time outside this region. Above him was a cold and empty space, while below him was a vast river that was whistling and flowing towards the distance. Of course, it was not a river, but a river formed by the power of the heavenly Tao's samsara. It ran through the heavens and the earth, and in the deepest space-time of the universe, it maintained the cycle of life and death. Su Fong felt that the Nether River was very similar to the River of Order, but it was not as terrifying as the River of Order, the river of heavenly Tao order. Once one fell into it, it would be difficult to break free. Even transcendents were no exception. The shackles in the Nether River were obviously much weaker. With Su Fong's current cultivation, although he was suppressed in the Nether River, he was still able to fly calmly. This was because the power of the heavenly Tao samsara was of a lower level than the heavenly Tao order. Therefore, the shackles in the Nether River were not as terrifying as the River of Order. In addition, the Supreme Highness had absorbed the essence of the 9 underworlds, causing the cycle of reincarnation to collapse. The power of the heavenly Tao in the Nether River was naturally weakened to the extreme. The Nether River was beyond the realm of the gods, but it covered every corner of the universe. As long as it was a life that died in the universe, as long as the soul did not disperse, it would automatically enter the Nether River. The Nether River that Su Fong was in was only a section of the main river. In the dark river, there were countless shadows of remnant souls rising and falling. As far as the eye could see, they were all densely packed shadows. Their faces were pale, and their hair fluttered in the river. Even with Su Fong's current strength, seeing this scene made him tremble with fear. The remnant souls that Su Fong saw were the same as the ones that Su Fong saw outside the Nether River. They were all remnant souls that could not be reincarnated and would forever float in the Nether River. I've finally entered the Nether River. I wonder where I can find the Nether Sand and the 9 Underworlds embryo stone. Su Fong looked at the endless Nether River and was at a loss for what to do. Not only did the information from the Sky Beacon Divine Realm, but even the information from Huang Lingyao said that the Nether Sand was in the depths of the Nether River. However, the specific location was not stated. As for the 9 Underworlds embryo stone, even a Moonfrost Emperor had only heard of it from hearsay. He did not know where to find it. At this moment, a majestic voice suddenly rang out from the void. "Big Goblin, how dare you trespass into the 9 Underworlds? Surrender immediately." The voice was still echoing above the Nether River when a solemn and silent divine power suddenly descended and enveloped Su Fong. The river water churned as a black wooden boat emerged from the depths of the river. It broke through the waves and arrived in front of Su Fong in an instant. A figure stood on the bow of the boat. Su Fong looked over and was both shocked and stunned. It was an ape dog. It looked like a giant ape monster, but it had the head of a wolf. However, this ape dog was wearing a tattered blue robe and an official's hat on its head. Its face was dignified and full of righteousness. It looked extremely comical. What made Su Fong even more stunned was that there was a clear palm print on the left side of the ape dog's face. There was also a footprint on the official's hat, as if it had just been beaten up. This ape dog exuded an astonishing aura that could control the Nether River. As soon as it appeared, countless remnant souls in the Nether River sank into the water and disappeared without a trace. Su Fong stammered, "Sir, you are—" The ape dog shouted majestically, "I am Go Li, the judge of the 9 Underworlds. I am responsible for the life and death of souls in the Nether River." Su Fong laughed. "Go Li, what majestic name." The ape dog was furious. "How dare you? The Nether River is the place of reincarnation. Big Goblin, you are not dead yet, and your life is not over yet. How dare you trespass into the Nether River? Why don't you surrender and wait for my judgment?" Su Fong laughed involuntarily. "You want to judge me? Not to mention you, a big goblin at the king god level. Even if you're a sovereign, you will have to accept my judgment if you trespass into the Nether River without the king god's decree." "Soul hooking," the ape dog shouted majestically. It waved its hand and rolled out a white xianguang. It fell on Su Fong and turned into a chain in an instant, binding Su Fong. Su Fong chuckled and did not resist. The white chain penetrated Su Fong's body and erupted with the power to shackle the primordial spirit. It actually wanted to pull Su Fong's primordial spirit out of his body. Su Fong's primordial spirit and his second primordial spirit would surpass the peak of the king god level after merging. How could the soul hooking chain shake them? No matter how the goalie urged it, it could not hook Su Fong's primordial spirit out. It was so tired that the ape dog was sweating profusely. Su Fong said with a smile, "Lord Goalie, do you need my help?" "Humph, if I can't hook your soul, then I'll take your body with me to the Underworld Judgment Hall." Goalie withdrew the soul hooking chain and separated his hands. 2 wooden shackles flew out and shackled Su Fong. Then he dragged Su Fong onto the wooden boat. The wooden boat swayed on the Nether River and could capsize at any time. Su Fong was very worried. The wooden boat weaved through the wind and waves and finally came to a floating object on the Nether River. On the object, there was a dilapidated palace that looked like it could be blown away by a gust of wind at any time. It should be the Underworld Judgment Hall that Goalie mentioned. Goalie brought Su Fong to the interior of the palace. Su Fong was speechless again. The furnishings in the palace were old and shabby. There were cobwebs and dust everywhere. He could even see some rat-like monsters of the underworld crawling on the beams. Su Fong coughed a few times and asked, "Lord Goalie, your Underworld Judgment Hall seems a little shabby. Why don't I give you some benefits in exchange for letting me go?" "Don't be impudent. I'm upright and outspoken. How can I be bribed by a big goblin like you?" Goalie sat down majestically behind the table and shouted angrily. Then he took out a black brush and drew in the air. It quickly condensed into a shining golden decree. "Trespassing on the Nether River is a capital offense. Bribing me is an additional offense. I sentence you to be a slave in the underworld judgment hall for eternity." Goli shouted loudly and pointed at Su Fong. The decree flew towards Su Fong, and it erupted with a shocking might that could decide life and death as it suppressed towards Su Fong. "QL 11-inch, I've come to the Nether River and happen to lack a guide. I sentence you to be my slave and guide me." Su Fong roared with laughter while the Heaven Overseer token floated up into appearance in his palm, and it erupted with the supreme divine might of order that monitored the Heaven Tao. The divine might of the decree instantly shattered into pieces, and then it burned with a hiss before transforming into ash. Then, Su Fong activated the Heaven Supervisor token and released the power of the Heavenly Tao's order. It quickly turned from nothingness to reality and condensed into a chain of order that firmly shackled Goli. Goli cried out in exasperation. "Who exactly is this big goblin? You actually have a treasure that surpasses the underworld judgment brush?" "Unlucky. I've been too unlucky recently. First, I met a violent woman from the Netherworld divine race. Then, I met a big goblin that possesses a supreme divine weapon. Damn it, what kind of bad luck have I encountered recently? Why am I so unlucky?" Su Fong's heart jolted as he asked. "A woman from the Netherworld divine race came here before." Goli said angrily, "You're with that woman from the Netherworld divine race? You're even more ruthless than her. All she did was snatch away my life and death reincarnation book and beat me up. Yet, you won't make me your slave. Back then, I was also a big shot in the Nine Netherland. I decided the life and death of countless souls." Su Fong felt that this underworld judgment brush was extremely funny. He was also curious about Huang Lingyao's actions and asked, "What is the life and death reincarnation book? Why did that woman from the Netherworld divine race snatch your life and death reincarnation book? You don't even know what the life and death reincarnation book is?" Goli was stunned, and then he said proudly, "The life and death reincarnation book is a supreme divine weapon in the 9 underworlds. It can judge the reincarnation of a soul and determine the current life and the future. That woman from the Netherworld divine race said she wanted to investigate her older sister who had fallen into the cycle of reincarnation. That was why she snatched my life and death reincarnation book. Huang Lingyao actually didn't enter the Netherworld River for some treasure, but to investigate the whereabouts of her older sister." Su Fong couldn't help but feel that it was inconceivable. Chapter 2434. Goli said proudly, "Any life form that dies in the world will enter the Nether River. As long as they enter the Nether River, they will have to go through my hands. I will examine this life, judge the next life, and leave a mark on the samsara book." Hearing this, Su Fong's heart thumped wildly. He then asked, "Then can the mortals who died in the small world also find out their current life and their next life in the samsara book?" Goli said, "The small world, the large world, and the myriad of worlds are just divided by you humans according to the level of the plane. They are meaningless to the Nether River. Any life form, whether mortal, immortal, or God, as long as their soul is not completely destroyed, will enter the cycle of reincarnation." Then, there was a helpless look in his eyes. He said, "But later on, the 9 underworlds were shattered and the cycle of reincarnation was cut off. After a life form dies, the soul enters the Nether River. Only a small part of it enters the cycle of reincarnation. Most of the souls sink into the 9 underworlds." Su Fong's eyes suddenly lit up. If that was the case, wouldn't he be able to find out the reincarnation of his mother and grandfather from the samsara book? From the small world to the large world, and then to his current height, Su Fong had always been brooding about his mother and grandfather. His mother died of depression because of his father's departure. Even before she died, she hoped that Su Fong could become a cultivator and not a useless person who could not cultivate. His grandfather was killed by his enemy, the Wu family, when Su Fong was still weak. Su Fong had never forgotten these 2 things since he was the lowliest cultivator in the small world. Thinking of his mother and grandfather, Su Fong's mind was in a trance. Memories of his mother and grandfather emerged from the depths of his memory. If I can find out the next life of my mother and grandfather from the Samsara book. Thinking of this, Su Fang's heart surged. The purpose of this trip to the 9 underworlds, the nether sand, the 9 underworlds embryo stone, and breaking through to the Lord God level were all thrown to the back of his mind at this moment. Boom! A burst of divine power erupted from Su Fang's body, shattering the wooden shackle on his neck. Underworld Judge Goli was so scared that he began to tremble. Su Fang made a grabbing motion and pulled Go Li from behind the table to his front. Where did that woman of the nether divine race go after she took away your life and death reincarnation book? Under Su Fang's pressure, Go Li had a terrifying feeling that he was about to shatter completely. He hurriedly answered, that nether divine race woman stole the life and death reincarnation book and went to the reincarnation stage. I think she went there to find out where her sister had reincarnated. Samsara stage? After my judgment, the souls that have entered the path of reincarnation will either sink into the nether river, go to the reincarnation platform to be reincarnated, or go to other places in the 9 hells. You can find their final destination from the reincarnation platform. Su Fang suddenly became ferocious and shouted domineeringly, I'll give you 2 choices. One is to be my guide and go to the reincarnation stage immediately. 2 is to be my guide and go to the reincarnation stage immediately. Ever since I became the underworld judge of the Nether River, I've been conscientious in my duties. I'm upright and plain-spoken, and I won't submit to force. How can I submit to your despotic power? I'm willing to be your guide. Under Su Fang's terrifying pressure, Goli could only submit obediently and make a very wise choice. QL11 Su Fang activated the Heaven Supervisor token and planted a shackle seed in Go Li's soul. Then, he quickly left the Underworld Judge Hall. Go Li was still preparing to drive his broken ship when Su Fang took out the Universe card. Creation Divine Artifact? My lord actually has a Creation Divine Artifact. Cultivators who have this kind of artifact will be contaminated with the creation energy of the Heavenly Tao. Even if their lifespan is exhausted and they enter the Nether River, they will still be reincarnated with the creation energy. In their next life, they will be protected by the Heavenly Tao and possess talent and luck that ordinary people can't compare to. Seeing the Universe card, Go Li cried out in surprise. This is not the only powerful divine artifact that I have, said Yi Futian. Su Fang was too lazy to talk nonsense with this little underworld judge. Then, he activated the Universe card and brought Go Li along as they sped on the Nether River. Sitting on the Universe card, Go Li felt the feeling of transcending time. He was immediately shocked and was even more in awe of Su Fang. On the way, Su Fang asked, Go Li, where can I find nether sand and nether embryo stone in the 9 hells? Nether sand? This little one knows about it. In the 9 hells, there's a place called the soul-sinking beach. It is located in a deeper space-time. When a nether river falls into the 9 hells, the souls in the river are impacted and condensed into a substance. This is the nether sand. The soul-sinking beach is already extremely dangerous. In addition, the 9 hells is shattered, and there are turbulent flows formed by the broken reincarnation cycle everywhere. It has become even more dangerous. My lord, don't tell me you want to go to the soul-sinking beach? Su Fang snorted. You don't have to decide where I want to go. Do you know where I can find the nether embryo stone? This little one has heard of the nether embryo stone. It is said that it is a supreme treasure used for the cultivation of a supreme underworld venerable. As for where you can find it, this little one doesn't know. Next, Su Fang asked many more questions about the 9 hells. Underworld Judge Go Li was the underworld judge of the Nether River and could be said to be the supreme ruler of the souls that entered the Nether River. However, in the entire 9 hells, he was not considered a powerful existence, and there were not many who knew the real secrets. However, there were many things that existed in the legends of the 9 hells, which broadened Su Fang's horizons. After witnessing the power of the Sky Supervisor token and the Universe River Chariot, Go Li became very obedient and took the initiative to say to Su Fang, My lord, if you want to enter the reincarnation platform and find your family's next life, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Is there any danger in the reincarnation platform? At this moment, the entire Nine Hells is in a state of chaos. The 9 underworld venerables who used to control reincarnation have long fallen. Some of the key places in the 9 Hells have been occupied by some powerful netherworld monsters. The reincarnation platform is no exception. It has been occupied by a flower demon that is wantonly devouring the souls of reincarnated souls. What kind of flower demon is that? It's a spider lily. After the first world metamorphosis, the spider lily that came out of nowhere also mutated and occupied the reincarnation platform. I once approached the reincarnation platform and was almost devoured by the spider lily. I never went there again. Su Fang's heart suddenly sank. If the spider lily occupies the reincarnation platform and devours souls, wouldn't all souls that enter the netherworld river be unable to escape? I don't know either. However, before the world metamorphosis, although the 9 Hells was shattered, there were still many souls that could be reincarnated. I don't know if Master's family died before or after the metamorphosis. Su Fang heaved a sigh of relief. His mother and grandfather had died before the first world metamorphosis and should have been reincarnated. The only thing that worried Su Fang was that if his mother and grandfather reincarnated into the small world would be almost completely occupied by the resurrected powerhouses. It would be equivalent to being completely destroyed. If they were devoured by the resurrected powerhouses and their souls were completely destroyed, they would be unable to enter the cycle of reincarnation. That would be the end of all hope. The netherworld river surged, and the infinity wheel flew at a low altitude above the river. Its speed didn't seem fast, but in the blink of an eye, it had already crossed an endless distance. By the time he saw the infinity wheel, it was already far away. What he saw was only an afterimage left behind by the infinity wheel in the past. After flying for an unknown distance, a dark mountain peak appeared in the netherworld river. The river water circled around the mountain peak, as if it was reincarnating between life and death, this life and the next, and then rushed into the distance. The mountain peak was a fiery red, as if it had been ignited by a raging fire. In the cold and dark 9 Hells, it was the only dazzling color. Su Fang used his great perfection ability and focused his eyes. He discovered that the fiery red on the mountain peak was actually a large expanse of red spider lilies. Countless petals and leaves danced about, stirring up the sky. From afar, it looked like the mountain peak was burning with flames, but it was more like a burning blood fire. In the sky, a crescent moon hung high, emitting a cold and deathly still aura. Huang Lingyao was under the crescent moon, holding the nether dragon spirit pearl in one hand. It released a protective power that allowed her to float above the netherworld river as if she was in the natural world, unfettered by the shackles of the world. At the same time, she urged the nether moon above her head. Moonlight condensed into blades that attacked the red spider lilies. The moonlight blades cut through countless red spider lilies, but even more petals flew out from the mountain peak. They shattered Huang Lingyao's nether moon divine might and entangled Huang Lingyao. This fierce battle lasted for an unknown period of time. Although Huang Lingyao firmly held the upper hand, it was difficult for her to completely kill the red spider lilies. Goli recognized Huang Lingyao at a glance and said to Su Fang in a trembling voice, "It's that woman from the nether divine race. She stole my life and death reincarnation book." Su Fang put away the infinity wheel and stood in the air above the netherworld river with Goli, watching a good show. Huang Lingyao also discovered Su Fang and Goli. Her figure flashed and disappeared from the mountain peak. Her divine might also disappeared. When Huang Lingyao reappeared, she was only a few hundred li away from Su Fang. She looked at Su Fang with eyes full of surprise and shock. "Yuanli, how did you enter the netherworld river's main river?" Su Fang said coldly and embarrassedly, "Can't this venerable enter the netherworld river without you?" Huang Lingyao snorted. "Humph, this sect master entered the netherworld river for an important matter. I don't want to be disturbed. Besides, I didn't lie to you at all. Give me the life and death reincarnation book. This venerable will help you suppress that red spider lilies. Huang Lingyao asked in surprise. What do you want the life and death reincarnation book for? Su Fong said domineeringly. You don't need to worry about this, Venerable. That red spider lilies is rooted in the Netherworld River. Without this Venerable's help, you can't kill them or enter the reincarnation stage. Huang Lingyao pondered for a moment. Then, she waved her hand and rolled out a xianguang, wrapped in a thin black book, and flew to Su Fong. Su Fong reached out and grabbed the black book in his hand. The aura of the great Tao of life and death permeated from book. Goli said from the side, Yes, this is the life and death reincarnation book. My lord, who are you looking for? Let this little one help you. No need. Chapter 2435. Goli hurriedly said, My lord, the life and death reincarnation book is a supreme reincarnation divine artifact. It records the countless reincarnations of life since the reincarnation of life and death. My lord cannot control the divine artifact. If you want to find your loved ones, it will be like finding a grain of sand in the ocean. If you are not careful, your primordial spirit might be injured. Su Fong turned a deaf ear to him. He used his extraordinary yin and yang energy and consciousness to penetrate the life and death reincarnation book. In an instant, his consciousness entered the internal space of the life and death reincarnation book. Countless faces gathered into a vast ocean. They were densely packed, layer after layer. The endless space was filled with soul imprints that had entered the Netherworld River. After the creation of heaven and earth and the birth of life, there was the reincarnation of life and death. Any soul that entered the Netherworld River would leave a soul imprint on the life and death reincarnation book. There were so many soul imprints that there were more than the sand on the beach. After all, no matter how much sand there was still a limit. However, there were countless soul imprints in the life and death reincarnation book. Finding two people among so many soul imprints was 10,000 times more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Before he found them, his primordial spirit would collapse. Mother, grandfather. Su Fong silently chanted his mother's and grandfather's names. Then, the destiny power of the life shrinking technique exploded and poured into the life and death reincarnation book. The life shrinking technique had the supreme ability to capture the aura of destiny. As long as his mother and grandfather entered the Netherworld River and left their soul imprints in the life and death reincarnation book, Su Fong could use the life shrinking technique to capture them. However, the space inside the life and death reincarnation book was extremely vast. The number of soul imprints was also innumerable. This caused the consumption of Su Fong's life shrinking technique to be extremely shocking. His silver hair was instantly covered with a layer of grayish white. His vitality and blood instantly withered. The physical body of the big goblin that he had transformed into using the demon refining technique also rapidly shriveled and withered. Goli was the underworld judge in charge of the life and death reincarnation book. He was the most sensitive to the primordial spirit. When he sensed the destiny power of the life shrinking technique, he was so frightened that his soul could scatter at any moment. Huang Lingyao was also shocked. What ability did this big goblin Yuan Li use? It's so extraordinary. What kind of person is he looking for that he's willing to sacrifice his own lifespan? Buzz, buzz, buzz. A soul imprint caused the Tao runes of fate to flash rapidly in Su Fong's mind. Su Fong's consciousness immediately found the soul imprint in the sea of soul imprints. It was an old face full of wrinkles. In an instant, Su Fong seemed to have reversed time and returned to the past, to his grandfather's side. Grandfather! Su Fong's mind was agitated, and tears gushed out uncontrollably. His consciousness firmly locked onto his grandfather's soul imprint. From the imprint, Su Fong naturally obtained some information. You committed a crime of murder when you were alive. Your punishment is to enter the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Soul-crushing prison. Goli, you're courting death. Su Fong was infuriated. He reached out and grabbed Goli from the air. His sharp claws gripped Goli's neck. Demonic flames surged out of his hand and burned rapidly. Goli loudly begged for mercy. "My lord, please spare my life. I'm just passing an impartial judgment. Anyone who is killed before their death will be sentenced to the yin-yang heavenly wheel after entering the 9 underworlds." Su Fang's grandfather was also a martial artist when he was alive. His medical skills were superb. He had saved many people and also killed people. After entering the 9 underworlds, he would naturally be judged by the underworld. "I don't care if you're passing an impartial judgment or not. You deserve to die for daring to treat my family like this. If anything happens to my family, your life will be in danger." Su Fang coldly snorted and said domineeringly. Then he extinguished the demonic flames and asked murderously, "What kind of place is the yin-yang heavenly wheel? What will happen after entering the yin-yang heavenly wheel?" Goli said fearfully, "The yin-yang heavenly wheel is the center that maintains the operation of the Tao of reincarnation. It requires countless souls to pull to make the heavenly wheel work. My lord's family will be sentenced to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. This is the lightest punishment. They won't be able to reincarnate and will suffer some hardship in the yin-yang heavenly wheel." Su Fang said domineeringly, "If anything happens to my family, you don't need to live anymore." Goli escaped death for the time being. In addition to panic and fear, he was extremely depressed. This big goblin was much more domineering than that woman from the divine tribe of Dark Underworld. Next, Su Fang did not hesitate to consume his lifespan again. He used the life-shrinking technique to search for his mother's soul imprint in the Life and Death Reincarnation book. This time, he was not disappointed. Soon, he found his mother's soul imprint in a vast sea of soul imprints. "Mother." Looking at his mother's depressed face, Su Fang's eyes were filled with tears again. What made Su Fang feel fortunate was that his mother was sentenced to reincarnation. Su Fang felt gratified. Mother is kind by nature. Naturally, she will be reincarnated and be reborn. But I don't know where she will be reincarnated. Goli, how can I find out where she will be reincarnated? Su Fang's consciousness withdrew from the Life and Death Reincarnation book and shouted at Goli. Huang Lingyao said, "If you want to find out where she will be reincarnated, you must go through the reincarnation stage." At this time, the reincarnation stage is occupied by the red spider lily. Only by killing it can you enter the reincarnation stage. However, the red spider lily is really powerful. It is rooted in the Nether River and is immortal. You have consumed so much of your lifespan. I'm afraid it will be difficult to kill the red spider lily. Immortal? Su Fang looked at the fiery red spider lily on the mountaintop. His eyes shot out a fierce killing intent. "Whoever dares to stop me from finding my family, I will kill them." Then, Su Fang sat down cross-legged in the air and secretly formed a seal to use the azure blood dome. He turned the inner part of his body into a bloody state and wantonly devoured pills, spiritual items, and blood crystals. At the same time, he secretly activated his yang qi to recover the lifespan he had consumed when using the life-shrinking technique. Huang Lingyao also sat cross-legged in the air in the distance. With the help of spiritual items that contained the essence of extreme yin, he recovered the energy he had consumed during the battle with the red spider lily. Goli respectfully stayed where he was, not daring to make the slightest movement. About 100 years. 100 years, to experts like Su Fang and Huang Lingyao, who had almost reached the peak, was about the same as 10 days to half a month for mortals. In such a short time, Huang Lingyao had only recovered half of his strength. Su Fang suddenly stood up. In a mere 100 years, his silver hair had completely recovered to its original state. His demon qi, vitality, and blood had all returned to their normal state. His body, which had withered and shriveled from using the life-shrinking technique, had also returned to its previous state. Huang Lingyao opened his eyes and sensed Su Fang's aura. Instantly, his expression changed. Such an astonishing recovery speed. I didn't expect Su Fang to have such a powerful big goblin under his command. Even I am ashamed of my inferiority. Goli was even more dumbfounded. He looked at Su Fang in disbelief. Whoosh, Su Fong took a step forward and appeared in the sky above the mountaintop. A big goblin has actually appeared in the Nine Serenities. It has never devoured a life before. I heard that the blood and chi of life forms is very good. Just nice. I will use you, the big goblin, to taste it. A burst of bell-like laughter came from the mountaintop. Flowers and leaves rippled like burning flames. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as the voice fell, flowers and leaves swept toward Su Fong crazily. They were like flames that soared into the sky, wanting to devour Su Fong alive. Su Fong sneered disdainfully. The nine-yang divine fire in his body merged with the demon fire and surged out from his body. Then he separated his hands, and flaming saber lights burst out in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. The saber lights fell on the flowers and leaves. The collision caused a large-scale explosion and set off monstrous flames. The terrifying power of the flames caused the nether river around the mountain, where the reincarnation stage was located, to boil. The sea of red spider lilies burned layer by layer in the explosion. Shrill screams rose one after another. Su Fong's demon fire couldn't do anything to the red spider lilies. The main thing was the nine-yang divine fire, which had a fatal restraining power against the nether monsters in the Nine Serenities. In addition, Su Fong used the illusory fire cloud to erupt. The power of the flames was extremely shocking. After half an hour, the illusory fire cloud stopped burning. The mountaintop was already a pile of ashes. Underworld Judge Goli was dumbfounded. He almost couldn't believe his own eyes. Why is this big goblin Yuan Li's supernatural power so similar to the ones Su Fong used before? Even the divine might of the flames is shockingly similar. QL11 Huang Ling Yao was also shocked, not only because of the powerful strength Su Fong displayed, but also because the supernatural power Su Fong used gave her a sense of déjà vu, which made her suspicious. When a mountaintop calmed down, a huge platform was revealed. It was the reincarnation stage. There was a well on the reincarnation stage. An aura of life and death emanated from the well. This was not an ordinary well. It was the reincarnation well that sent souls to reincarnation or other places in the Nine Serenities that punish souls. Whoosh! Huang Lingyao's figure flashed and went straight to the reincarnation stage. Su Fong suddenly shouted coldly, "Wait!" Huang Lingyao was startled, but she still stopped. Just as she was about to ask, a red light shot up from the reincarnation well. Like a volcanic eruption, it instantly covered the reincarnation stage and turned it into a sea of red flowers. The red spider lily's voice was filled with complacency and evil as it echoed out from the sea of flowers. "You are truly extraordinary, great demon. Unfortunately, this is the 9 underworlds. Even if you incinerate my body, I can borrow the netherworld river to be reborn infinitely. What can you do to me?" Boom! Red flowers and leaves shot up into the sky again. They looked like terrifying flames that wanted to burn Su Fong and Huang Lingyao to death. "Then I'll kill you completely. Let's see how you'll be reborn." Su Fong shouted domineeringly and activated the infinity wheel again. This time, the infinity wheel circled around the mountaintop. A terrifying power that could reverse time enveloped the entire mountain. Chi, chi, chi. The monstrous flowers and leaves immediately withered under the terrifying power of time. They quickly turned into saplings and finally turned into a blood-red seed. Su Fong reached out and grabbed the red spider lily seed. He sealed it and absorbed it into his body. Chapter 2436. The Universe Chariot possessed 3 supreme temporal abilities: time reversal, stillness, and acceleration. When pushed to the limit, it could reverse time and instantly return an enemy to a state of incubation. As the violet Chi Dharma spirit transformed once more, Su Fong was still unable to push the Universe Chariot to its limits, but the might it could unleash was several times more formidable than before he entered the 9th underworld. At this moment, Su Fong directly activated the Universe Chariot and forcefully transformed the Permetha flower from its peak state into a seed. Such heaven-defying might shocked Underworld Judge Goli once more. and he looked at Su Fong as if he was looking at a supreme underworld sovereign. Even though Huang Lingyao was once in the ruins of End, he'd personally witnessed the scene of Su Fong using the universe chariot to crush 1,000,000 Dao defiance. Now that he saw the tyrannical might of the universe chariot once more, a storm arose in his heart. Su Fong put away the universe chariot, and his aura seemed to be slightly weak. Activating the universe chariot had consumed quite a bit of his energy, but it was still within an acceptable range. He took a step forward and flew onto the reincarnation platform. Go Li, come here. Su Fong unleashed a wave of divine might and grabbed Go Li onto the reincarnation platform. Tell me, how can I find out about reincarnations? Go Li stammered this. What? Could it be that you were lying to me? Su Fong's face immediately darkened. This lowly one wouldn't dare. Go Li hurriedly replied. With the thin soul imprint of the reincarnation of life and death, I can find out what happened after reincarnation in the well of reincarnation. However, the well of reincarnation can only find out about one reincarnation. If my Lord's family members have gone through multiple reincarnations, then it's impossible to find out. Moreover, after a single reincarnation, my Lord's family members are no longer the same as before, so it's meaningless even if I find out. Su Fong felt as if he'd been struck by lightning, and he was instantly stunned on the spot. To a deity, he only had a lifespan of over 300,000 years. However, to a mortal, he had experienced countless reincarnations. How was he supposed to investigate this? And just as Go Li had said, after reincarnating, all of one's memories and fate would disappear, and one would become a completely different person. Even if one were to reincarnate, it would be meaningless. Go Li then cautiously said, the cycle of life and death is the heavenly Tao. No one can change anything. If you have any obsession in your heart, it will be detrimental to your Tao heart and your reincarnated relatives. Huang Lingyao also said, that's right, this dog judge is right. I'm a judge of the underworld, not some dog judge. If you dare to speak rudely to me again, I will not let you off easily. Go Li was furious. Although he was afraid of Huang Lingyao, he still had some confidence with Su Fong around. Huang Lingyao coldly glanced at Go Li. Even if I twist off your dog head, what can you do? I'm not just a nether judge of the nether river. I'm also a slave under his command. If you dare to touch a single hair on my head, then how could my master let you off? Go Li sneered, and he seemed to be a dog that was relying on its master's power to threaten others. Huang Lingyao snorted. Your master is a slave under this sect master's command. Do you think this sect master wouldn't dare twist off your dog head? This time, it was Go Li's turn to be stunned. He didn't dare to make a sound and hid beside Su Fong, no longer daring to approach Huang Lingyao. Su Fong was silent for a long time and then sighed deeply. He had no choice but to accept the reality that he couldn't save his mother. His mother's reincarnation meant that she had severed the karma between them. Even if he could find her countless reincarnations, it would be meaningless. Let me see my mother's first reincarnation. Su Fong grabbed a shadow from the Life and Death Reincarnation book. It was the sole imprint his mother left in the Life and Death Reincarnation book. However, he used a divine power to carefully shroud the shadow and slowly sink it into the well of reincarnation. The well of reincarnation was incomparably deep. It was cold, gloomy, and had the aura of the great way of life and death reincarnation. Su Fong's mother's soul floated into the well of reincarnation. The surface of the water immediately rippled and changed into a lifelike light and shadow. It completely played out the experience of her reincarnation. His mother reincarnated into a mortal country in a small world and became the pearl of an important minister in the imperial court. When she grew up, she married the crown prince and later became the empress of country. Her life was smooth, safe, and rich. Su Fong felt a little comforted in his heart and didn't continue to investigate. However, the sadness and melancholy in his heart couldn't be erased. Huang Lingyao asked Go Li coldly, how do you track down the souls sent to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel? Su Fong looked at Huang Lingyao in surprise. The Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel? Xianming's sect master. Your sister was also sentenced to the yin-yang heavenly wheel? You care a lot about this sect master's matter. Huang Lingyao's eyes exuded a cold chill. Su Fong said indifferently, "You took the life and death reincarnation book from Go Li. It's not difficult for this venerable to know about your matter." Huang Lingyao said, "That's right. This sect master's trip to the ninth underworld was for my sister to fulfill a wish. According to the life and death reincarnation book, my sister was not originally sentenced to the yin-yang heavenly wheel, but to a more cruel place." Su Fong asked puzzledly, "Then why are you so sure that your sister went to the yin-yang heavenly wheel?" The red spider lily guarded the reincarnation stage. Most of the souls that entered the ninth underworld after the upheaval were swallowed by it, and only a few entered the reincarnation stage. However, the souls of cultivators were sent to the yin-yang heavenly wheel and given to its master god. "There's such a thing." Su Fong looked at Go Li. Go Li shook his head and said, "That red spider lily even dared to swallow me. How could I dare to inquire about its matters?" This was said by the red spider lily personally. "I don't know what kind of existence its master god is. At this time, he controls the yin-yang heavenly wheel and controls countless souls. He pulls the yin-yang heavenly wheel to cultivate and improve his strength." Su Fong suddenly understood and asked, "Go Li, how can we find out the current situation of the souls sent to the yin-yang heavenly wheel?" Go Li said, "You can use the life and death reincarnation book to integrate the soul mark into the reincarnation well." Su Fong took out his grandfather's soul mark from the life and death reincarnation book and then floated into the reincarnation well. However, after a long time, the well water did not move at all. There was no reaction. Su Fong's heart sank. "Go Li, why is it like this?" Go Li was also confused. Logically speaking, such a thing should not happen. Could it be that because the ninth underworld is broken, the reincarnation well cannot show the situation in the yin-yang heavenly wheel? "Let me give it a try." Huang Lingyao asked Su Fong for the life and death reincarnation book and grabbed a shadow from it. Su Fong was not unfamiliar with it. It was Huang Lingyao's elder sister, Shui Wuing. Su Fong thought to himself, could it be that Huang Lingyao's conscience has been discovered, so she specially entered the ninth underworld to save her sister's soul? Shui Wuing's soul mark slowly floated into the reincarnation well. Just like Su Fong just now, there is still no movement. It seems that it is really because the ninth underworld is broken, so the reincarnation platform cannot detect the situation of the souls in the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Huang Lingyao was greatly disappointed. No, if the reincarnation well has lost its function, how can the red spider lily send the souls of cultivators to the yin-yang heavenly wheel? Su Fong frowned. Suddenly, Su Fong's divine light changed slightly, and a burst of primordial spirit power erupted from his mind. Boom! An extremely powerful primordial spirit power swept out from the reincarnation well and collided with Su Fong's primordial spirit power, forming an astonishing qi gang that swept out in all directions. Su Fong felt a sharp pain in his head. In this collision of primordial spirits, he had suffered a lot of damage. Fortunately, Huang Lingyao and Go Li were standing behind Su Fong. Most of the primordial spirit power that erupted from the reincarnation well was blocked by Su Fong alone, and they were only slightly affected. Bang! An illusory primordial spirit power exploded at the mouth of the well and quickly condensed into a lifelike figure of a black-robed man. I thought that the one who killed the red spider lily was a nether venerable from the ninth underworld. I didn't expect that one of them was from the divine clan of the dark underworld, and the other was from the big goblin. The black-robed man was shrouded in shadows, and his face could not be seen clearly. They only sensed that his eyes swept over them, and immediately Su Fong and Huang Lingyao felt an astonishing and cold primordial spirit pressure. Then he stared at Su Fong and said in a cold and embarrassed voice, "It is really incredible that a divine armed spirit monkey like you has such a powerful primordial spirit. Could it be that the world has changed, and even the big goblin has mutated?" Su Fong's eyes flashed with a fierce cold light. "Are you the master of the red spider lily?" The black-robed phantom nodded and said, Yes, I'm a master of the red spider lily, and I am also the master of the yin-yang heavenly wheel. You can call me the master of the heavenly wheel. Since you killed the red spider lily, I will shackle you and make you my slaves. You will replace the red spider lily to guard the reincarnation stage and capture the souls of cultivators for me. Huang Lingyao sneered and said, If you really have such ability, how can only one primordial spirit appear? The black-robed phantom smiled embarrassedly. I am just at the critical moment of cultivation. How can I allow you two ants to be so presumptuous? Come to the yin-yang heavenly wheel obediently and accept my shackles. I will grant you immortality. Otherwise, Huang Lingyao snorted. Shameless boasting. The black-robed phantom stretched out his hand in front of him, and a light screen quickly appeared. In the light screen, there were countless and densely packed phantoms. Each of them was wrapped in an iron chain, and they were struggling to pull the iron chain. At the place where countless iron chains gathered, there was a huge millstone-like thing. Only the tip of the iceberg could be seen in the light screen. Although only a small part of it was shown in the light screen, the scene of countless souls pulling the millstone still shocked Su Fong and Huang Lingyao. Then, the light screen quickly zoomed in, and an illusory figure became clear on the light screen. It was a white-haired, hunchbacked old man. The wrinkles on his face could be clearly seen, but his eyes were filled with incomparable pain and despair. Chapter 2437. Unexpectedly, Su Fong didn't expect to see his grandfather in the yin-yang heavenly wheel. What's more, the pain his grandfather was suffering was far beyond his imagination. In the yin-yang heavenly wheel, the soul was immortal, but it was always suffering endless pain and fatigue without rest. Seeing the pain his grandfather was suffering at the moment, Su Fong's heart seemed to be pierced by countless sharp swords, and blood overflowed from his eyes. Her mother entering the reincarnation cycle was a relief for her, and it was also the best ending for her. However, his grandfather had suffered all his life, and now he had to suffer so much after death. How could Su Fong bear it? The Lord of Sky will said majestically, Big Goblin, you really make me curious. You are a big goblin, but you have a mortal relative and such a powerful primordial spirit. Wait until you become my slave, then I will investigate your background. Huang Lingyao also looked at Su Fong in surprise and felt more and more confused. Calm down. I have to stay calm at this time, or I will fall into the trap of the Lord of Sky Wheel. Su Fong kept telling himself in his heart and forced himself to calm down. He looked at the Lord of Sky Wheel with sharp eyes. You found my relative in the well of reincarnation through the soul imprint of my relative, and then threatened me to go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. You are indeed the holy arm spirit monkey. You are so smart that you figured it out at once. The Lord of Sky Wheel laughed. Then the void in his eyes flashed, and the light curtain in front of him changed again, turning into Shui Wuying's face. Although Shui Wuying was a practitioner of the world-led, he looked like the soul of Su Fong's grandfather. His face was pale, showing endless exhaustion, pain, and despair. Not to mention a practitioner of the world-led, even the soul of a god could not bear this endless torture. QL 11-inch sister. Huang Lingyao let out a shrill scream, and a nether moon shot out from between her eyebrows and shot toward the Lord of Sky Wheel. However, when the Elysian moon passed by the Sky Wheel Master's divine body, the Sky Wheel Master remained unharmed. Huang Lingyao's attack couldn't cause any harm to his primordial spirit. I will be waiting for you at the yin-yang heavenly wheel, the Lord of the Sky will said coldly. Then, his figure in the light screen in front of him disappeared. Su Fong shouted at Goli, Goli, what do we get to the yin-yang, Tianluan? Goli trembled under Su Fong's terrifying killing intent. My lord, the heavenly wheel lord can control the yin-yang heavenly wheel, and his strength is comparable to an underworld venerable. Furthermore, he can borrow the power of the yin-yang heavenly wheel. My lord, please go. Huang Lingyao reached out and grabbed Goli to his side, shouting angrily, Again? Chaos? Oval Ben Yu stunned grave bark punishment Yes, yes, yes. Goli nodded repeatedly like a chicken pecking rice. Only the soul can pass through the well of reincarnation. If you too want to go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel from the well of reincarnation, you can only use your primordial spirit. However, the power of the heavenly wheel lord's primordial spirit is so powerful, and he can control the yin-yang heavenly wheel. As long as your primordial spirits enter the well of reincarnation, they will be directly crushed into powder by the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Huang Lingyao snorted. You still talk so much nonsense. Goli hurriedly said, there is only one other way, and that is to follow the Netherworld River. If we keep going along the river, we can finally reach the space-time where the yin-yang heavenly wheel is located. However, the Netherworld River behind the reincarnation stage has dried up. Some places are occupied by Netherworld monsters, and some places are in the chaotic zone of space-time and reincarnation. Let's go. Su Fong didn't talk nonsense. He directly took out the infinity wheel and flew Goli onto it. I will go with you. Huang Lingyao flew onto the infinity wheel and sat down right next to Su Fong. Huang Lingyao killed her older sister, Shui Wuying, for the sake of Yunxiao's lightning sword. Yet she wants to save Shui Wuying's soul now. Women are really fickle. Su Fong sighed with emotion in his heart, and then he controlled the infinity wheel and flew along the Netherworld River. In the depths of the Netherworld River, at a place where terrifying turbulence had been created due to the collapse of space-time, the river water swept wantonly through the air, and it formed numerous terrifying vortexes and torrents. Countless nether souls were swept into the vortexes, and they were instantly minced into pieces before being swallowed by the vortexes in the end. The turbulence formed from the energy of the Heaven Tao's reincarnation, and the shattering of space-time was far more terrifying than the turbulence of space-time in nature. Even the undercurrents of space-time outside the lifeless prairie paled in comparison. Swoosh! Swoosh! 9 figures flew out successively from an enormous vortex. Surprisingly, it was the 9 Emperor Exalt Emperors that had entered the Netherworld River. The 9 Emperor Exalt Emperors were in an extremely sorry state right now, and they actually seemed as if they'd encountered something that even Emperor Exalt Emperors felt terrified of within the vortex. The 9 Emperor Exalt Emperors only stopped when they left the area of the vortex. A devil saint from the devil race gazed at the vortex while his eyes were filled with lingering fear. It really is strange to the extreme. Why did we fall into such a terrifying spatial vortex? As soon as we entered the Netherworld River, we were almost unable to escape. The other big goblin seemed to be horrified as well. The chaos of space-time within the vortex was secondary, and it couldn't do anything to us Supreme Exalt Emperors. The strange part was that the vortex actually contained the energy of the Heaven Tao's reincarnation, and it caused us to fall deep into the cycle of reincarnation. If we hadn't joined forces, then we would have fallen deep into it. Emperor Exalt Emperors were top-rate existences in the universe, and there were very few places of peril that could trap them. Even the places of peril that were said to be one of the 10 great places of peril in the universe, besides the Descent Divine Palace, there were very few places of peril that they feared. Never had they imagined that they would actually encounter one of the 9 Emperor Exalt Emperors as soon as they entered the Netherworld River. So, how could they not be surprised? One of the human Emperor Exalt Emperors had a solemn expression on his face as he spoke. Even though the 9th Hell's reincarnation has shattered, it's impossible for it to be a place of peril that can pose a threat to us. We've probably fallen into the vortex because of someone. Someone? The expressions on the faces of the other Emperor Exalt Emperors instantly changed. The devil saint from the devil race spoke in a low voice. Could it be from outside exalted celestial mountain? He hadn't even finished speaking when an enormous rumbling resounded from all directions. He stared over. Monstrous waves arose from the Netherworld River in the distance, and they swept through space and swept towards the 9 Emperor Exalt Emperors from all directions. The enormous waves carried shocking pressure and shackles, and they even contained the energy of the Heaven Tao's reincarnation. It caused the 9 exalt emperors to tremble with fear, and they were on the verge of being swallowed and crushed into powder by the enormous waves. It really was the mountain guardian of exalted celestial mountain. The mountain guardian actually didn't hesitate to exhaust his cultivation and fate to defy the heavens and attack us for the sake of that Sufong. The Emperor Exalt Emperors were like pigs and sheep that were waiting to be slaughtered when facing the terrifying attacks of transcendence, and the only thing they could do was close their eyes and wait for death. Right when the 9 Emperor Exalt Emperors were about to be swallowed by the enormous waves. Swish! An arrow shot out violently from the right. The arrow seemed to be extremely ordinary. It was jade green in color, and it was around the size of an ordinary arrow. It was insignificant like a strand of straw when compared to the monstrous waves in the surroundings. However, the arrow pierced through the enormous waves, and the wave collapsed layer by layer wherever it passed. It didn't take long for it to lose its terrifying, imposing aura, and it felt like the Heaven Tao was collapsing. The aged voice of the mountain guardian of exalted celestial mountain resounded through space. You really have betrayed my human race. If I knew this would happen, then my Lord Exalt would have annihilated you all those years ago. And Xian Guang flashed out from within the jade green arrow, and it swiftly condensed into a figure that spoke coldly. All those years ago, this Alliance Master was ordered by the Exalt to join forces with the Devil Race. In the end, I was suppressed by the Exalt instead, and I even lost all standing and reputation after my death. Now that this Alliance Master has been resurrected by the Supreme Evil God, I intend to go against the heavens and destroy this world. The Mountain Guardian grunted. I won't argue with you about what happened all those years ago. Now that you're vainly trying to go against the heavens, it's truly laughable. As long as you descend and are suppressed on the exalted celestial mountain, this world will still belong to the Supreme Evil God. Defiance like you won't be able to run wild. The green figure said indifferently, as long as this Alliance Master kills Su Fong and ends the hope of your human race, the Supreme Evil God will break free from his shackles and replace the Exalt to become the ruler of this world. Back then, you still couldn't transcend. Now that you've been resurrected by the power of descent, you still can't transcend. Moreover, your real body can't leave that coffin. What appeared now is merely an unshackled doppelganger. With me here, you can forget about harming Su Fong. The green figure laughed wildly. Mountain Guardian, your duty is to protect the exalted celestial mountain. To put it simply, you're just a watchdog for the exalted celestial. You only have the right to watch the door, but you're restricted by the Heaven Tao laws and can't bite anyone. So what if your strength surpasses the exalted celestial? At most, you'll bark like a dog. Even though I can't kill all of you, I can trap all of you for a few thousand years. As soon as the Mountain Guardian's dignified voice resounded, the enormous wave that the Tao Defiance had just shattered suddenly started to spin rapidly. With the Tao Defiance and the 9 Tao Defiance at the center, it swiftly formed ring after ring of hurricanes and tsunamis. They spiraled madly and formed layer after layer of space-time that enveloped all of them. Mountain Guardian, even if you trap me, you still can't protect Su Fong. His life belongs to me, and the Chaos Origin Sacred Mirror belongs to me. The Tao Defiance Alliance Master let out a thunderous roar, and his voice was quickly drowned out by the surging storm. Su Fong charged straight for the heavenly yin-yang wheel, so he naturally didn't know that the Mountain Guardian had helped him resolve a life and death crisis. The Universe River Chariot flew on the Nether River, and even with Su Fong's strength, it was gradually becoming difficult for him to endure. Fortunately, Huang Lingyao was prepared. He took out the Nether Dragon Spirit Pearl, activated it, and released a protective divine might to fly forward. Even though his speed was much slower, it became extremely easy for him. Around 500 years later, along the way, Su Fong and Huang Lingyao had killed countless monsters in the Nether River. It was all thanks to Underworld Judge Go Li. After all, he was the Underworld Judge of the Nether River, so Su Fong and Huang Lingyao were spared a lot of trouble. My lord, quickly stop. Chapter 2438. What's the matter? Su Fong and Huang Lingyao stopped. Goli pointed to the left, and his eyes flashed with a strange light. He shouted, "The mirage of Buddha's light! The legendary mirage of Buddha's light! The mirage of Buddha's light!" Su Fong looked in the direction Goli pointed in surprise. Huang Lingyao was shocked, and her eyes flashed with disbelief. She also looked in that direction. Above the Nether River in the distance, a ray of Buddha's light passed through the river like a divine sun rising into the sky. It emitted a sacred aura that spread above the Nether River, dispelling the cold and dead aura in the Nether River. The sacred light shrouded the river in an instant, forming a huge world of Buddha's light. One could vaguely see a golden Buddha sitting cross-legged in the world. Su Fong bathed in the Buddha's light and felt a peace in his Taoist heart that he had never felt before. Because his grandfather's soul had fallen into the hands of the Lord of the Sky Wheel, his heart was filled with anger, anxiety, and hatred. The moment the Buddha's light shone on him, he became incomparably peaceful. Huang Lingyao's aura also underwent an amazing change. Because of the divine underworld clan's cultivation method, the death aura that exuded from her was no longer so cold, but more human. The countless nether souls floating in the Nether River, who were originally letting out all kinds of wails and screams, also became completely silent with the appearance of the Buddha's light. Countless nether souls floated quietly in the Nether River, the aura of death and resentment completely dispelled. That's the aura of Buddhism. How can there be the aura of Buddhism in the land of 9 serenities? Su Fong asked in surprise. That's the legendary mirage of Buddha's light, Huang Lingyao said slowly. I didn't expect that the legendary mirage of Buddha's light really exists. Then she explained to Su Fong. Buddhism used to be a transcendent force in all the worlds. When it was at its strongest, Buddhist cultivators were all over the major divine realms, and there were Buddhist Taoist temples everywhere. In the war between the human clan and the devil clan, Buddhism was the main force and played an irreplaceable role for the human clan to defeat the devil clan. Unfortunately, the Buddhist sect was later heavily damaged by the devil race. Now, only the Buddhist cultivators in the Pure Land of the Far West are left. There are some records about Buddhism in the inheritance of the Dark Nether Divine Tribe. Because it's related to the Dark Nether Divine Tribe, I remember the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom very clearly. According to the records of the ancient books, there was a peerless powerhouse in the Buddhist sect who was infinitely close to transcending. His name was Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and he had once vowed to purge the evil karma of the netherworld from all living beings and use it to attain the Buddha fruit. He also made a vow that he would not transcend until hell was empty. Ksitigarbha Buddha's magic power is boundless, surpassing the 9 great underworld venerables of the netherworld. Moreover, he made such a vow to sacrifice himself for all living beings. Thus, he is revered by all. In the 9 underworlds, even the 9 great underworld venerables admire him greatly. Huang Lingyao's respectful words made Su Fong feel deep veneration. Underworld Judge Go Li's face was full of reverence. Huang Lingyao continued with a sigh. Later, the 9 underworlds was shattered, and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's whereabouts were also lost. Some people said that he was killed by the devil race, while others said that he had transcended heaven and earth. The Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom is the Tao site left by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in the 9 underworlds, and it occasionally appears in the 9 underworlds. Su Fong asked, "Is there any treasure in the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom?" Goli replied, "There are definitely treasures, but what makes many souls scramble for them is not treasures, but something else. Legend has it that no matter what kind of soul, no matter how great the sins they committed in their lifetime, as long as they enter the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom, they will be liberated and reincarnated as a human. If you make a vow in the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom and get the approval of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's will, you can obtain supreme fortune." Supreme fortune? Su Fong was naturally uninterested in the so-called fortune. He shook his head and said, Let's hurry up and go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Huang Lingyao snorted. It's not that this sect master is disrespectful to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, but the Mirage Buddha-like kingdom he left behind is a supreme fortune for those ordinary souls. What use can it be for this sect master? How can it be useless? Goli hurriedly said, I heard that as long as you enter the Mirage Buddha-like kingdom left behind by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and get the approval of the Buddha's will, you could be baptized by the Buddha's light and obtain the Buddha's nature, thus increasing the possibility of transcending heaven and earth. Because of this, the 9 great underworld venerables were looking for the Mirage Buddha light kingdom everywhere. So terrifying? Su Fong and Huang Lingyao felt incredulous and were skeptical. Being baptized by the Buddha's light and transcending heaven and earth may be just a rumor. But there is one thing that really exists, and it has a vital effect on the Lord's family. Su Fong's spirit was refreshed. What treasure is that? In front of the throne where Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva once sat, there was a spiritual object called crimson spirit grass. Because it listened to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva for many years, it gained spirituality and absorbed the Buddha's light. It could condense into an ultimate yin treasure called crimson spirit dew, which has a great effect on any soul. When the soul is nourished by the crimson spirit dew, it can not only solidify the body, but also free the soul from reincarnation. Even those underworld souls who have lost consciousness can regain their consciousness after being nourished by the crimson spirit dew. My Lord's family has been tortured for so many years in the yin-yang heavenly wheel, and they must have suffered a lot. If they have the crimson spirit dew, it will naturally be of great benefit. Go Li's words surprised and delighted Su Fong. Is there really such a spiritual object? Go Li said solemnly. In the 9th underworld, many underworld souls have accidentally entered the Mirage Buddha light kingdom and been nourished by the crimson spirit dew, so they obtained supreme fortune. How dare I deceive my lord? At this moment, Su Fong's eyes suddenly became hale and hearty. His grandfather had been tortured in the yin-yang heavenly wheel for more than 300,000 years. It was impossible for him not to be injured, and he might have even lost consciousness. Even if he could be rescued from the hands of the heavenly wheel's master, it would be difficult for him to return to normal. If he had the crimson spirit dew that Goli spoke of, he naturally wouldn't have to worry about this. How could Su Fong not be moved? First, we have to find a way to get the crimson spirit dew. Then we have to find a way to go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Su Fong made a decision without hesitation. He asked Huang Lingyao, Ximing sect master, you won't let go of the crimson spirit dew, right? Huang Lingyao said coldly, Of course. Su Fong said indifferently, This venerable will say some ugly words first. If the crimson spirit dew is only enough for one person, this venerable will get it at all costs. Huang Lingyao's eyes flashed with a fierce light. At that time, if anyone dares to compete with this sect master for the crimson spirit dew, even if it's an emperor, this sect master will absolutely not back down. Is that so? At that time, we'll talk with strength. Su Fong snorted and took out the universe chariot. My lord, please take this little one with you. This little one is willing to be your slave in the future. Goli looked at Su Fong with a pleading face, looking pitiful but also very funny. This underworld judge was very shrewd. He had seen Su Fong's power along the way. At this time, when they encountered the mirage of Buddha light, only by following Su Fong closely could he obtain good fortune in it. How could he miss this rare opportunity? Get on. After Goli jumped on the universe chariot, Su Fong activated it and went straight to the mirage of Buddha light in the distance. Humph, big goblin Yuan Li, if you dare to compete with me, don't blame me, Huang Lingyao, for being ruthless, Huang Lingyao said with murderous intent. His figure flashed and followed Su Fong. Not only Su Fong and Huang Lingyao rushed to the place where the Buddha light appeared, but also countless nether souls in the nether river instinctively floated in that direction from all directions. There were also some extremely powerful nether monsters that were attracted by the sudden appearance of the mirage of Buddha light and rushed over there like a flock of ducks. On the Nether River, a black tide surged, and it was full of countless nether souls and nether monsters. The mirage of Buddha light. It's really the mirage of Buddha light. Outside the boundary formed by the Buddha light, several figures floated in the air, looking at the mirage of Buddha light. They were all excited and shocked. The white-clothed young man in the lead was Dixuan from the Imperial people. Behind him were Chu Bingyin, Qian Gang, Qi Mian, and Eli. Mo Tiangong and his 3 disciples were also released from Dixuan's Dharma treasure space. Clearly, they did not want to miss this supreme opportunity, especially Qian Gang. Due to his excessive excitement, even his bald head was red. His eyes were fixed on the mirage of Buddha light, not moving for even a moment. He murmured, "The 9th underworld indeed has the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha. Now, there is hope for the revival of Buddhism." It turned out that Qian Gang had almost risked his life to enter the 9th underworld for the legendary inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha. Although the others were not as excited as Qian Gang, there was not much difference. Even Dixuan, who had always been as calm as a mountain, had uncontrollable excitement in his eyes from time to time. Boom, boom, boom. Countless nether monsters could not wait to attack the boundary of the Buddha light, wanting to enter the mirage of Buddha light. There were also countless nether souls that flew toward the Buddha light like moths. However, no matter if it was the nether monsters or the nether souls, as soon as they touched the Buddha light, they were immediately swept away by a sacred power without exception. Dixuan asked Qian Gang, you came to the 9th underworld for the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha in the mirage of Buddha light. You should know many secrets that are not known to outsiders. Since the mirage of Buddha light has already appeared, why can't we enter it?" Qian Gang was silent. Clearly, he did not want outsiders to know the secrets of Buddhism. "Qian Gang, we entered the 9th underworld together and encountered a supreme opportunity, but you want to take it all for yourself. Isn't that a bit unreasonable?" Qi Mian provoked in a sarcastic tone. The others looked at Qian Gang with unfriendly eyes. Chu Bingyin and Qian Gang had the same experience in the divine prison of law. The two were very close. Seeing Qian Gang being threatened, Chu Bingyin immediately shouted angrily, "Qian Gang knows the secret of the mirage of Buddha light. Why should he let you know, Qi Mian? Qi Mian, are you willing to tell us the secret of the Qi people?" Chapter 2439. Chu Bingyin was about to scold Qi Mian when Mo Tiangong suddenly said, "Everyone has their own secrets. If Qian Gang doesn't want to tell us, no one can force him. Lord Dixuan, what do you think of my words?" Mo Tiangong was the #1 treasure refiner in all the worlds, and he was the leader of this trip to the 9 serenities. Now that he spoke up for Qian Gang, Qi Mian was speechless. Dixuan nodded and said, "Master Mo, you're right." Even Dixuan didn't dare to disobey Mo Tiangong, let alone the others. Qian Gang said gratefully, "Thank you, Master Mo, for speaking up for me." Mo Tiangong waved his hand and said, "No need to thank me. I only spoke up for you because of Su Fong." Su Fong. Qi Mian and Eli's expressions changed slightly. What happened in the divine prison of heavenly law had been spread all over Yuan Tiangong, so they naturally knew about the relationship between Qian Gang, Chu Bingyin, and Su Fong. Qian Gang and Chu Bingyin's master died in a battle with the resurrected expert in the divine prison of heavenly law, leaving the two of them alone in Su Fong. If they forced the two of them too much and Su Fong found out, Qi Mian and Eli felt a chill down their spines when they thought of Su Fong's dominance and power. Qian Gang thought for a moment and said, "Just now, Lord Dixuan asked why we couldn't enter the mirage of Buddha light. I do know something, so I can tell you." Everyone looked at Qian Gang and asked, "Oh, what's the reason?" "Just now, I communicated with the Buddhas while in the mirage of Buddha light with a supreme Buddhist skill and got some vague information." Qian Gang said slowly, "The mirage Buddha light kingdom is a world created by the Ksitigarbha Buddha. It is specially left for people with great Buddha affinity. This time, it didn't appear for no reason. It was because it sensed that the person with the fate of Buddha had appeared in the 9 underworlds. Only then did the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom appear. The Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom will only open when someone with great Buddha affinity arrives. Is there such a thing? Dixuan raised his eyebrows. Then he asked in puzzlement, the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom has appeared and been opened before. How did those netherworld souls and netherworld realm experts enter the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom? Could it be that they're all people who have great affinity with Buddha? Qian Gang shook his head and said, when a mirage of Buddha light appeared before, it didn't open the inner Taoist field. It only opened the periphery. Firstly, it was to convert those nether souls. Secondly, it was to find those with Buddhist affinity. However, it's different this time. The Buddhas will seem to have been awakened by the arrival of someone with great Buddhist fate. Not only the periphery, but even the inner Taoist field will be opened. Qimian was dubious. Qian Gang, if even you, a Buddhist cultivator, don't have Buddhist affinity, who else can it be? Qian Gang said, we don't have Buddhist affinity, but as long as we wait for the Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom to open and get the approval of the Buddha's will, it's not impossible for us to get the inheritance. We all have a chance. Dixuan and the others were shocked and excited. Who didn't want to get the inheritance of the Ksitigarbha Buddha? However, they immediately thought that even if there was an amazing fortune, it might not belong to them. They couldn't help but feel discouraged, but they also had some hope. They waited anxiously for a few days. Qimian couldn't help but mock Qian Gang. Qian Gang, how much credibility do you have in your words? In the netherworld, apart from us, there are only those nether souls and netherworld realm monsters. The Mirage Buddha Light Kingdom has appeared for so long, but we still can't enter. Could the so-called Great Buddha Affinity be those nether souls or netherworld realm monsters? Hearing Qimian's disrespect to the Ksitigarbha Buddha, Qian Gang raised his eyebrows. His face was full of anger, and he was about to refute. Dixuan suddenly let out a cry of surprise and looked into the distance. A four-wheeled carriage was flying over the Nether River. It didn't seem to be moving very fast, but the moment everyone saw it, it appeared in front of them at an incredible speed, as if it had transcended the constraints of time. This four-wheeled carriage was the Infinity Wheel. Su Fang's indifferent voice came from the Infinity Wheel. Grandmaster Mo, Lord Dixuan, everyone, I didn't expect you to also come to the Netherworld. Yuanli, you also enter the Nether River? Dixuan and the others were incredulous. Qimian sneered. Outside the Nether River, we searched everywhere for you, but you entered the Nether River alone. Could it be that great elder Yuan Li wanted to abandon us and take the credit for himself? Su Fang sneered. This venerable entered the Nether River because Dongsha Mashing was chasing after me. I had no choice but to escape into the Nether River. I didn't expect you to already have the means to enter the Nether River, but you hid it from me. Dixuan cupped his fists and said, I have a boundary breaker talisman. I had no choice but to use it to enter the Nether River. Please forgive me, Great Elder Yuan Li. Mo Tiangong chuckled. Great Elder Yuan Li, we still haven't found the Nether Sand. We still need to work together. It's just a small matter. Let's forget about it. Since Mo Tiangong spoke, Su Fang naturally didn't say anything more. This is the Nether Judge of the Nether River? Seeing Go Li's strange appearance, Dixuan asked in surprise. Go Li puffed out his chest and said proudly, Yes, this venerable is the Nether Judge. You entered the Nether River without permission, which is an unforgivable crime. Since you are acquainted with Yuan Li, this venerable will not pursue it. Shut up. Su Fang's brows raised as he shouted coldly. Go Li instantly shut his mouth obediently and seemed to be extremely obedient. Su Fang jumped off the Infinity Chariot with Go Li and then sucked the Infinity Chariot into his body. He said, Yes, he's a Nether Judge. Right now, he is my guide in the Netherworld. Seeing Go Li following Su Fang like an attendant, Dixuan sighed and said, Great Elder Yuan Li is really unfathomable. You can even subdue a Nether Judge of the Netherworld. Mo Tiangong stroked his beard and said, With such a Nether Judge as our guide, it will be much easier to find the Nether Sand. Suddenly, Qian Gang exclaimed, The Mirage of Buddha Light is about to open. Everyone's attention was immediately diverted. The barrier of Buddha light in front of them suddenly trembled violently and opened up a passage. Countless nether souls and monsters of the netherworld rushed towards the tunnel. Everyone looked at Su Fong and then looked at Go Li with strange expressions. Su Fong said in surprise, "What? Is there something wrong?" "Umph. Whoever enters the mirage of Buddha light first will be the one with Buddha fate." Eli's reaction was the fastest. He snorted, and then his figure flashed like an arrow that had left the bow, shooting towards the tunnel. Who knew before those nether souls and nether monsters could get close to the passage, a dazzling Buddha light surged out. Countless nether souls and nether monsters were swept aside by the Buddha light, and Eli was also sent flying back by the Buddha light. Fortunately, this Buddha light was very gentle. Not only Eli, but even those nether souls and nether monsters were not injured. The Buddha light quickly turned from nothingness to reality and condensed into a staircase that extended out from the inside of the barrier. The staircase went all the way to Su Fong's feet before it stopped. At this moment, everyone was shocked, and the gazes they shot at Su Fong were filled with disbelief. As soon as Su Fong appeared, the mirage of Buddha light opened. At this time, a passage appeared directly under his feet. This was enough to prove one thing. Su Fong was the one with Buddha fate that Qian Gang had said. A big goblin actually has Buddha fate? QL11 Su Fong was also shocked and did not understand what was going on. However, since it was related to the Crimson Spirit Dew, Su Fong would not be polite and walked along the stairs into the mirage of Buddha light. How can a big goblin be the first to enter the mirage of Buddha light? Qian Gang, did your Buddhist supremacy make a mistake? Big Goblin Yuan Li has killed countless people and is cruel and ruthless. How can he be the one with Buddha fate? Qi Mian muttered unhappily to Qian Gang. Qian Gang was also confused. When Su Fong's figure disappeared at the end of the stairs turned into Buddha light and dissipated. Di Xuan and the others found that the passage to the inside of the boundary was still there, and no repulsive force was released. In an instant, the souls and monsters of the netherworld poured into the boundary like a tide. Di Xuan, Mo Tiangong, Chu Bingyin, and the others, including Underworld Judge Go Li, naturally did not want to be left behind and flew toward the entrance of the boundary. The Buddha light released by the mirage of Buddha light contained a strange power that could dissolve resentment and hostility, so that there was no conflict between these cultivators and the souls and monsters of the netherworld. Su Fong walked to the end of the stairs, and a distorted divine power enveloped him. He was surrounded by holy and peaceful Buddha light, as if he had traveled through endless time and space. When everything returned to normal, Su Fong felt as if he had returned to the real world. He looked carefully. He found that there was an endless ocean in front of him, and Su Fong was standing on the seaside. The seawater was dry and yellow. Waves rolled and rolled, causing a gust of aura to blow against his face with the wind. The moment he felt this breath, Su Fong's heart surged with countless feelings, as if he was immersed in a boundless sea of bitterness, and all kinds of feelings that made him feel incomparable pain surged from the bottom of his heart. The bitterness of birth, old age, sickness, death, love and separation, resentment and hatred, the bitterness of not being able to get what one wants, the bitterness of the five flourishing Yin, and the bitterness of life and death. It was as if all the bitterness in the universe was contained in this vast ocean, unfathomable and boundless. A sea of bitterness. Su Fong came to an understanding in his heart. The boundless ocean before his eyes was the legendary sea of misery. Su Fong thought to himself, the legendary mirage of Buddha light is actually a sea of bitterness? It shouldn't be. Teleporting me to the edge of this sea of bitterness should be a test. At this time, a calm voice sounded in his mind. The world is a big sea of bitterness, and the sea of bitterness is boundless. Only by transcending life and death can one escape the sea of bitterness and reach the other shore. Su Fong was shocked. The will of Ksitigarbha Buddha? He thought for a moment. Su Fong asked, how can one transcend, cross the sea of bitterness, and reach the other shore. The will of Ksitigarbha Buddha continued. Make a vow from your heart, condense it into a boat, and use your Tao heart as the helm. The greater the vow, the stronger your Tao heart, and the sturdier the boat. Only then can you cross the sea of bitterness. Chapter 2440. Ksitigarbha Buddha chuckled. You shook the universe outside the underworld river and alarmed my will. That's why the mirage kingdom of Buddha light appeared and led you into the sea of bitterness. Originally, I wanted to give you the opportunity to transcend life and death. However, you only care about the crimson spirit dew, which really surprised me. Su Fong made a clanging sound. I have my own path of transcendence. I don't need others to give it to me. To me, the crimson spirit dew is 10 times, no, 100 times more important than the opportunity given by Lord Buddha. Ksitigarbha Buddha sighed. It seems that I'm still thinking too much. In that case, I won't force you. As long as you cross the sea of bitterness and reach the other shore, you can get the crimson spirit do you want. Thank you, Lord Buddha. Su Fong cupped his fists and bowed to the sea of bitterness. Then he asked, Lord Buddha, it seems simple to make a vow with one's heart to condense a boat, but it's definitely not that easy, right? Of course. The vow you make can obtain power from my world. The bigger the vow, the greater the power you obtain. The stronger the boat, the further you can go in the sea of bitterness. However, the vow is not empty words. If it doesn't come from one's heart, even if the boat is condensed, it can't sail. If the vow is too small, the boat won't be able to withstand the wind and waves. It will capsize in the sea of bitterness. Moreover, in the sea of bitterness, you have to undergo various tests. If your Tao heart can't maintain the boat of your vow, you will also be swallowed by the sea of bitterness. Ksitigarbha Buddhas will said slowly. Thank you, Lord Buddha, for your guidance. Su Fong sat cross-legged by the sea of bitterness. He closed his eyes and calmed his heart. He began to condense his vow in his heart. Just when Su Fong was by the sea of bitterness, Di Xuan, Mo Tiangong, Qian Gang, and the others, as well as countless souls and monsters of the underworld, entered the inner part of the mirage kingdom of Buddha light. This was a world of Buddha light. In the sacred Buddha light that filled the sky, one could faintly see the shadows of golden Buddhas sitting cross-legged. They were emitting a majestic and loud Buddha voice. In the Buddha light and Buddha voice, whether it was the human cultivators, souls, or monsters of the underworld, they seemed to have been baptized and obtained. This lasted for more than a month. The Buddhist chanting stopped, and the Buddhist light disappeared without a trace. The Buddhist light world turned into a void, and the nether souls and nether monsters all worshipped the void before leaving the mirage kingdom of Buddhist light. From now on, these nether souls would be liberated and enter the cycle of life and death. Those nether creatures would also have good fortune. From now on, they would possess a certain level of intelligence and would no longer be those chaotic monsters. Huang Lingyao didn't know when she entered the Buddha's light mound country. She didn't find the Su Fong, nor did she get the crimson spirit dew that she was looking forward to. She immediately felt unreconciled. The others were also unwilling to give up. Qian Gang put his palms together and kowtowed to the void. Disciple Qian Gang risked his life to enter the 9 underworlds just to revitalize Buddhism. Buddha, please bestow upon us the good fortune to revitalize Buddhism. Qi Mian shouted, why is it that the big goblin Yuan Li has the great Buddha's fate and can obtain the good fortune, but we human cultivators can't? Ksitigarbha Buddha's voice reverberated in the void. Since you can enter my mirage kingdom of Buddhist light, it means that you are fated with Buddhism. Then, I will give you the chance to obtain the good fortune. However, it is difficult to cross the sea of bitterness. If you fail, you'll have to suffer. Then, a distorted divine power shrouded everyone. When they woke up from the abnormal changes in the void, they found that they had already arrived at the sea of bitterness. Seeing that Su Fong didn't look like she had received the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha, everyone was relieved. Make a vow to cross the sea. As long as you can reach the other side, I will also bestow upon you supreme good fortune. The voice of Ksitigarbha Buddhas will reverberate it in the minds of Dixuan and the others, making them all excited. Just by making a vow, we can obtain supreme good fortune. I, Eli, will never miss such a heaven-sent opportunity. Not to mention Dixuan and the other human cultivators. Even Go Li, the nether judge, was eager to give it a try. QL11 Go Li said in a trembling voice, Lord Buddha, can I? Ksitigarbha Buddha's voice rang in his mind. All beings are equal. Of course you can. Now that the cycle of reincarnation is interrupted, you are able to guard the nether river and scrupulously abide by your duty. It shows that your heart is not weak. You may go further in the sea of bitterness than the others. Goli was overjoyed. Thank you, Lord Buddha. Everyone sat down by the sea of bitterness with their legs crossed. Like Su Fong, they made a vow in their hearts. About half a month later, Chi Mian shouted loudly, My vow is to step on the top of the universe and become the supreme god. His voice echoed in the sea of bitterness. A force was attracted by his voice and quickly condensed into a wooden boat of about 10 feet by the sea of bitterness. The wooden boat was exquisitely constructed and revealed a strong power of faith. Success! Chi Mian was overjoyed. He looked at Su Fong, Dixuan, and the others proudly, and then stepped on the wooden boat. Whoosh! The wooden boat broke through the waves and soon disappeared in the sea of bitterness. Another 10 days later, Eli stood up from the ground and shouted towards the sea of bitterness. I, Eli, vow to lead my clan to rise from the forest of divine clans in the universe and become the number 1 divine clan in the universe. Eli's vow was obviously much bigger than Chi Mian's. Therefore, the boat she condensed was much bigger than Chi Mian's. It was more than 300 feet long. Eli's vow will definitely help me cross the sea of bitterness and reach the other shore to obtain the supreme fortune of Ksitigarbha Buddha. Eli had a supreme, domineering aura. She followed the big boat and broke through the waves. Her speed was more than twice as fast as Chi Mian's boat. In less than half an hour, she had completely disappeared in the depths of the sea of bitterness. Then there was Underworld Judge Go Li. His vow was not small. He wanted to be the judge of the 9 underworlds forever. He wanted to judge one person and miss one soul. Go Li's vow caused the power above the sea of bitterness to vibrate. It condensed into a black boat more than 500 feet long. It was almost twice as big as Eli's. At this time, Su Fong suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Underworld Judge and said secretly, Small people also have their own vow. Although this Go Li is an ape, he can persist until now. He is also a person with faith in his heart. My vow will definitely help me cross the sea of bitterness and obtain the crimson spirit dew, Su Fong grinned. A strong sense of confidence arose spontaneously. Dixuan, Mo Tiangong, Qian Geng, Huang Lingyao, and the others all opened their eyes. They wanted to see what kind of vow Su Fong would make. They also wanted to see what was so special about Su Fong that Ksitigarbha Buddha regarded him as a person with great Buddha's destiny. Yuan Li's vow. As soon as Su Fong spoke, he suddenly remembered that his identity was now the big goblin, Yuan Li, and not Su Fong. How could a vow made by impersonating Yuan Li's name attract the power of Ksitigarbha Buddha? Although the demon shape-shifting technique was extraordinary, how could it hide from the will of a person who is infinitely close to transcendence? Su Fong did not want to expose his identity as Yuan Li for the time being. Not to mention other things, if Huang Lingyao knew his true identity, it would be a big trouble. Thinking of this, Su Fong smiled embarrassedly and sat down cross-legged by the sea of bitterness again. Dixuan and the others were shocked and stunned. They immediately thought that Su Fong was deliberately playing with them. They were immediately furious. Chu Bingyan suddenly stood up and said in a loud voice, I, Chu Bingyan, vow to kill all resurrected powerhouses until I die. Chu Bingyan's master sacrificed himself to save him and was killed by the resurrected sovereign Jiang Taijia. It was not strange that he would make such a vow. However, his vow was no small matter. As soon as his sonorous voice fell, it immediately caused the power of the world where the sea of bitterness was located to tremble. Boom! A large ship that was hundreds of feet long condensed by the sea of bitterness. As soon as it appeared, it caused the sea of bitterness to tremble violently. Chu Bingyan, you have a great vow. I, Qiangang, also have one. I vow to revive the power of Buddhism and rebuild the cycle of life and death. If my vow is fulfilled, I, Qiangang, am willing to follow Ksitigarbha Buddha and guard the 9 underworlds forever, as long as hell is not empty. I vow not to become a Buddha. Qiangang's voice was like a world-shaking Buddhist voice. The tremor it caused was several times more shocking than Chu Bingyan's. It quickly condensed on the sea of bitterness to form a large ship that was hundreds of feet long in the shape of a peach pit. Although it looked no different from Chu Bingyan's ship, it revealed a kind of sacredness and transcendence. Obviously, it surpassed Qiangang. Chu Bingyan and Qiangang left on the ship. They rode the wind and waves on the sea of bitterness at an astonishing speed. In a dozen breaths, they disappeared into the distant horizon. Next, Mo Tiangong and his 3 successors, including the masters, they all said their vows and condensed them into a ship that sailed towards the depths of the sea of bitterness. Next was Huang Lingyao. Her vow was to dominate the 9 underworlds and become the lord of the netherworld. Only Dixuan and Su Fong were left on the shore of the sea of bitterness. Dixuan said, "Great Elder Yuanli, do you have a vow that you don't want outsiders to know? If you don't even dare to tell others your vow, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for Great Elder Yuanli to reach the other shore." Su Fong said indifferently, "Lord Dixuan, you don't have to worry about this venerable one. I'll make a move first." Dixuan nodded. Immediately, Dixuan looked up at the sky. His eyes were deep, and a kind of dominating aura suddenly erupted. His voice was full of dominance. "I, Dixuan, vow to surpass the shackles of this world and roam the vast outer space." Dixuan's voice contained his will and power. It caused the world of Ksitigarbha Buddha to shake. It was more shocking than anyone before. The ship that was condensed was shockingly thousands of feet long. Dixuan stepped on a huge ship that was like a giant ship. It set off a huge wave in the sea of bitterness, majestically and domineeringly sailing towards the depths of the sea of bitterness. As expected of a peerless figure of the imperial people, his ambition is so amazing. He actually wants to become a transcendent. Su Fong waited until Dixuan's figure was out of sight before revealing a domineering smile. Looking at the void, Su Fong's eyes became incomparably deep. A kind of dominating aura spontaneously arose. "I, Su Fong, vow not only to transcend this world, but also to become the master of this world. I want to dominate my own destiny, protect my family, and save the world." Rumble. Chapter 2441. The grand and boundless vow quickly condensed into a gigantic ship at the edge of the sea of bitterness. It was incomparably mighty, just like a battleship. QL-11, as soon as the gigantic ship appeared, it immediately caused the sea of bitterness to shake and set off huge waves. It was a spectacular sight. My vow is actually so grand. The ship condensed is actually so amazing. It surpasses everyone, including Dixuan. Su Fong was also very shocked. Qi Mian, Eli, Chu Bingyan, Huang Lingyao, and the others all swore to become peerless powerhouses. Even Dixuan's vow was to become a transcendent being. Su Fong, on the other hand, wanted to create his own world. How could the others be as bold as he was? Moreover, he wanted to protect the myriad worlds. With such a vow and such strong confidence, the ship condensed was naturally extremely amazing and surpassed everyone else. Just as Su Fong was about to use his body movement technique to board the ship, an invisible force wrapped around him and sent him directly onto the ship. Boom, boom, boom. The gigantic ship crushed the waves and automatically sailed towards the depths of the sea of bitterness. Wherever it went, it set off huge waves that swept towards the surroundings. Its power was vast and incomparably shocking. Chi was the first to make a vow to enter the sea of bitterness. However, he was quickly overtaken. Not only was he overtaken by Chu Bingyin and Qian Gang, but even underworld Judge Go Li was quickly left behind. The only ones who could not surpass him were the three successors of Mo Tiangong. The proud and arrogant Chi was naturally furious that he was overtaken time and time again. Looking behind him, he still did not see Su Fang's shadow. Chi finally found some balance in his heart. At least that big goblin Yuan Li has been left behind by me. Humph, he has great affinity with Buddha. Unexpectedly, less than half a day later, a gigantic ship broke through the waves and arrived. Even though it was thousands of miles away, the waves that it set off caused the ship under Chi to sway. That's Yuan Li. How is it possible? How can the ship condensed by his vow be so huge? Chi was completely stunned. Rumble. The huge waves rolled up by Su Fang's ship swept over, and Chi ship began to shake violently. Damn it, big goblin Yuan Li, how dare you harm me? Chi boat was too small, so it was instantly overturned by the huge waves. He struggled in the sea of bitterness and screamed miserably. Finally, he sank into the sea. Soon, they reached the depths of the sea of misery. Gusts of wind swept over, blowing on Su Fang's body. The gale didn't move Su Fang's clothes in the slightest, but it directly blew on his soul, causing his will and Tao heart to face great pressure and test. Within the raging winds was the power of karma. It was also known as the wind of karma by the Buddhist sects. As long as there was a cause for everything that happened in one's life, there would definitely be an effect. The winds above the sea of sufferings were the karma that had been planted in one's life. They formed a power that had to bear all sorts of karma at this moment. Even if one had an enormous vow, one could only endure the onslaught of the karmic winds in order to cross the sea of bitterness and reach the other shore. Sailing on the sea of sufferings wasn't just a test of the karmic winds. The deeper Su Fang went into the depths of the sea of sufferings, the more he experienced what the sea of sufferings was. Within the aura of the world, there were all sorts of sufferings. The sufferings of birth, old age, illness, death, resentment, separation, unrequited love, and the sufferings of the five essences. Although Su Fang had the protection of the giant boat, he still couldn't escape these tests. All sorts of painful feelings surged from the bottom of his heart, making him feel as if he was soaking in bitter water. Su Fang cultivated the life-shrinking technique and had the heaven-defying ability to control his own fate and karma. Moreover, Su Fang had also merged with a small part of the fruit of sin in the divine prison of heaven's law. Karma existed in the unseen world. The more one killed, the greater the shackles one would be subjected to, and the greater the rejection from the heavenly Tao. Therefore, it was difficult to reach the peak. And the function of the fruit of sin was to wash away karma. Moreover, in the inner world of the disillusionment heart-killing mirror in the Golden Rainbow King world, Su Fang had merged with his inner demons, and his Tao heart was close to flawless. In addition, the purple Qi Dharma spirit had just transformed, causing Su Fang to possess supreme luck. With so many fortunes and abilities, Su Fang's Tao heart had become incomparably sturdy. His ability to resist the corrosion of the karmic winds, as well as his tenacity to endure pain, far surpassed that of others. No matter how the karmic winds blew, no matter how much pain he suffered, Su Fang's Tao heart remained unmoved. His body was like a nail nailed to the bow of the ship, towering and unmoving. Not long after, Su Fang surpassed Eli, Chu Bingyin, Mo Tiangong, Qian Gang, and finally Huang Lingyao, Di Xuan, and the others. Seeing Su Fang's giant boat, everyone was incomparably shocked. A mere big goblin can actually condense such an astonishing giant boat. To be able to activate the power of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's world, what is his vow? Could the Ksitigarbha be biased on purpose? This big goblin Yuan Li was already so heaven-defying in the lifeless wilderness. Now that he's in the sea of misery, he's still so heaven-defying? Dixuan's vow is to transcend heaven and earth. What is this big goblin Yuan Li's vow? How can he surpass me? Apart from being shocked, there were those who were doubtful and those who were jealous. Seeing Su Fang's towering and unmoving appearance, everyone felt that it was even more inconceivable. As they continued to go deeper, gradually, some people found it difficult to endure. Some of the boats were too small and could not withstand the waves of the Sea of Misery. Their boats were overturned and sank into the Sea of Misery. Some of them could not withstand the impact of the karmic winds and the aura of the Sea of Misery. Their Tao hearts and wills collapsed, and their boats broke as well, falling into the Sea of Misery. After falling into the Sea of Misery, these people were directly sent out of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's world. Chi Mian was, of course, the first to be sent out of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's world. Although he was not injured at all, and had crossed the Sea of Misery this time, he had obtained quite a bit of fortune from it. After the baptism of the Buddha's light, coupled with the tempering of the Sea of Misery, his Tao heart had become even stronger. It would naturally be of great help to his future cultivation. However, Chi Mian was furious. Big Goblin Yuan Li, you will fall into my hands sooner or later. I will pull out your tendons and skin you alive. Following that, Eli, Chu Bingyan, Huang Lingyao, and the others, as well as Mo Tiangong and his 3 successors, as well as underworld Judge Go Li, were sent out of the mirage of Buddha's light one after another, appearing above the Nether River in the periphery. Some of them were overjoyed. Clearly, they had obtained an unexpected fortune or powerful Buddhist treasures. There were also people who were greatly disappointed. Huang Lingyao was half happy and half worried. Clearly, she had obtained a lot of fortune in the Sea of Misery. However, she did not obtain the Crimson Spirit Dew, which disappointed her greatly. After half a month, the Buddha's light flashed on the barrier outside the mirage of Buddha's light, and Dixuan was also sent out. Lord Dixuan, you also failed to reach the other side of the Sea of Misery? Chi Mian, Eli, and the others all gathered around. Dixuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. How can it be so easy to cross the Sea of Misery? I did not struggle to the end in the Sea of Misery. I did not even see the shadow of the other side that Ksitigarbha Buddha spoke of. Then he continued, however, the fortune I obtained in the Sea of Misery this time is not small. With this fortune, the risk of entering the 9th underworld this time was not in vain. Although Dixuan was a king god, he had a peerless master who could contend with a venerable sovereign. The fortune he spoke of was most likely the opportunity to become a supreme venerable. For anyone, it was a great fortune. Everyone congratulated. Congratulations, Lord Dixuan. Dixuan's divine light swept over everyone. He said in surprise, Great Elder Yuan Li and Qiangang did not come out? Chi Mian took the opportunity to provoke. Qiangang is a Buddhist cultivator. Naturally, he lasted a long time in the Sea of Misery. He may even be specially taken care of by Ksitigarbha Buddha. That big goblin Yuan Li. I really don't know what kind of ability he has to be valued so much by Ksitigarbha Buddha. Dixuan smiled faintly, as if he did not care. Su Fang did not know how long he had been sailing in the Sea of Misery. In front of him was still the vast Sea of Misery. There was no sign of the other side. The karmic wind became more and more violent. All kinds of great pain made Su Fang feel as if he was completely drowning in bitter water. The Sea of Misery is boundless. Turn back and the shore is at hand. Su Fang, do you want to turn back? When Su Fang's consciousness became blurred, Ksitigarbha Buddha's voice sounded in his mind. Turn back? Never. Su Fang responded decisively. As time passed, the test that Su Fang endured had already exceeded his limits. The Sea of Misery is boundless. Turn back and the shore is at hand. Su Fang, do you want to turn back? Su Fang will never give up. Ksitigarbha Buddha asked again and again, and Su Fang responded with the same answer again and again. In the end, Su Fang's consciousness was about to collapse. Only the last trace of persistence in his heart was holding on. The Sea of Misery is boundless. Turn back, and the shore is at hand. Su Fong, do you want to turn back? Never. Get lost. Su Fong answered angrily. In the end, his mind turned black, and he completely lost consciousness. Su Fong's consciousness fell into a deep sleep. It was as if he had drifted through endless time and space in the boundless darkness. He did not know how much time had passed. An astonishing Buddhist light suddenly lit up in the depths of his mind, dispelling the boundless darkness. Su Fong's consciousness was jolted awake, and he suddenly opened his eyes. Only then did he realize that he was in a valley. There was a thatched hut in front of him. An old Buddhist man wearing a cloth cassock was sitting cross-legged on the ground. This old man did not have any breath of life. He was not a living body. He was condensed from a strong will and Buddhist light. However, this Buddhist old man's deep eyes contained wisdom. When he looked at Su Fong could not help but feel relaxed, as if he had let go of everything. The various tribulations and pain he had experienced in the sea of bitterness rapidly disappeared under the old man's gaze. In the end, they were all gone. Su Fong asked, "You are Ksitigarbha Buddha?" The old Buddhist man smiled and said, "I am just the will of the world left by Ksitigarbha Buddha. I was left behind to fulfill his last obsession in this universe." Su Fong asked curiously, "Then where did the original body of Ksitigarbha Buddha go?" After the great war of the immortals and demons in ancient times, the Supreme Master of Buddhism led many Buddhist experts to the Buddhist kingdom universe. Only a few Buddhist disciples stayed in this universe. So the Buddhist sect left. They were not destroyed by the Buddhist sect. Why did the Buddhist sect leave? Chapter 2442. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva continued. You've obtained my Paramitha Buddha relic, and my consciousness is about to disappear. Let's make it short. Paramitha Buddha relic? What was that? Su Fong was stunned. When did I obtain your Paramitha Buddha relic? Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva smiled and said, Look at your divine aperture. Su Fong inspected his divine aperture. He saw a golden rice-like object floating in the depths of his divine aperture. Although it was only the size of a rice-like object, it emitted a shocking Buddhist light. Su Fong thought of the Buddhist light that appeared in his mind before he woke up. This rice-sized object contained a mysterious and ethereal power. This power did not belong to any power of the heavenly axiom. It was a supreme power that transcended the heavens and the earth and transcended life and death. Su Fong asked in astonishment, This is Supreme Buddha's Paramitha Buddha, Sarira. That's a relic that I condensed from my essence and the power of transcendence when I reconstructed my Buddha body when I transcended. In the netherworld, other than the son of the celestial Lord, I'm the strongest. I have the power to transcend life and death. The relic that I condensed when I transcended the heavens and the earth naturally contains the power to transcend life and death. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said slowly, How do you transcend the heavens and the earth? You need to sever your karma with the heavens and the earth, and then be reborn after death. You cultivate the supreme heavenly axiom. Although you have the realm of transcendence, you don't have the cultivation of transcendence. Even if you succeed in transcending the heavens and the earth, can you be reborn? The chances of you being reborn will not be more than 50%. My Paramitha Buddha relic can help you transcend life and death, but will it make you reborn? The chances of you being reborn will increase by about 20%. I can't say more about the specifics. Otherwise, I'll leave you with shackles. When you truly transcend, you'll naturally understand. Su Fong was extremely shocked. At the same time, he had a strong feeling that the Paramitha Sarira of the Ksitigarbha Buddha had increased his chances of becoming an overgod by 30%, not 20% as he had said. With the 4-elephant seal, the purple cloud Dharma spirit, the heavenly secret life shrinking technique, his comprehension of the Advent life reversal scripture, and the addition of the Ksitigarbha Buddha Sarira, Su Fong was at least 90% confident that he could become a lord. His ascension to become a chief god meant that he would transcend. What kind of treasure was Ksitigarbha Buddha's Sarira? It could actually help people transcend the heavens and earth. not to mention helping others transcend. Even the advancement of an Emperor Master was not something that could be helped by external forces. The Saraira of Ksitigarbha Buddha could actually help Su Fong transcend, which made Su Fong feel incredulous. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva stared at the Su Fong. You have to remember, don't forget your vow. If you go against it, not only will my Saraira not be able to help you, it will also form a shackle on you. Su Fong nodded and said, how can I go against the vow that I made from my heart? If that's the case, even if Lord Buddha's Saraira does not shackle my cultivation, it will still be difficult for me to progress in my cultivation. At the same time, he was also puzzled. I failed the test of the sea of sufferings. Why did Lord Buddha still give me a Saraira? Ksitigarbha Buddha smiled slightly. You didn't fail, you just didn't succeed. The sea of sufferings is boundless. Unless one transcends, no one can reach the other shore. With your vow and Taoist heart, if you have enough strength, it will be easy for you to reach the other shore. Therefore, you have passed my test this time. Su Fong rubbed his hands and said embarrassedly, Lord Buddha, since I have passed the test, then the Crimson Spirit Dew, I have already prepared it for you. Ksitigarbha Buddha opened his right hand, and 3 balls of Buddha's light floated out from his palm. Within the Buddha's light, there were 3 drops of black dew. Su Fong realized that Ksitigarbha Buddha's figure had clearly become blurry. Obviously, it was because he had lost the Permitha Saraira and was about to dissipate. QL 11-inch, take it. Ksitigarbha Buddha waved his hand, and the 3 balls of Buddha's light floated in front of Su Fong. Su Fong was instantly overjoyed. He absorbed all the balls of Buddha's light into his body, and then sealed them with the power of the world of Yin and Yang. Thank you, Lord Buddha. Su Fong knelt down and thanked him. He was originally full of respect for Ksitigarbha Buddha. After receiving such a great benefit this time, he naturally thanked him sincerely. You don't have to thank me. On the contrary, I should be thanking you. Ksitigarbha Buddha smiled slightly, and his figure became more and more blurry. Su Fong was stunned. Thank me? Back then, I made a vow that as long as the netherworld is not empty, I will not transcend. However, the decree of the supreme powerhouse of Buddhism gave me a greater mission, so I had no choice but to choose to transcend. Although it was a helpless action, it was also a violation of my vow. Therefore, I condensed the Permitha Buddha's Saraira. If this world is destroyed, my mirage kingdom of Buddha's light will appear and protect some humans and life forms. With the help of the Permitha Buddha's Saraira, they can leave this world and universe. When Ksitigarbha Buddha said this, Su Fong already understood. The reason why Buddhism left was because they had already predicted that the heavenly Tao would be destroyed. At the same time, Su Fong admired Ksitigarbha Buddha even more. He had already left, but he still did not forget his original vow. He left behind the Permitha Buddha Saraira in an attempt to leave behind the last hope for humans and other life forms. Although Ksitigarbha Buddha had transcended, removing the Permitha Buddha Saraira would definitely cause great damage to his vitality. Among those supreme powerhouses, who could do this? Even the supreme imperial people tried their best to save the myriad of worlds, but their ultimate goal was only to maintain the power of the number 1 divine race in the myriad of worlds. I didn't expect you to integrate with the supreme spiritual treasure called the purple Chi Dharma spirit outside the netherworld river and shake the world and universe. Therefore, I saw hope from you. That's why I appeared in the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light and led you here. To you, obtaining my Permitha Buddha Saraira is a supreme fortune. However, to me, you are the one who helped me fulfill my vow. Therefore, I am the one who profited this time. Ha! Ksitigarbha Buddha chuckled. He was actually joking with Su Fong. I still have one last concern. That is the declining Buddhism. That Qin gang is not bad. I will pass on everything in the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light to him. When the path of reincarnation is restored one day, he will be the overseer of the netherworld. Finally, the only hope of the myriad of worlds. Perhaps one day, you and I will meet in the Buddha's universe. Ksitigarbha Buddha nodded and smiled. His body quickly turned into nothingness and finally disappeared without a trace. From this moment on, there was no more Ksitigarbha Buddha in the myriad of worlds. Su Fong knelt down deeply in the direction where Ksitigarbha Buddha disappeared. His heart was filled with reverence. Rumble. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Everything in the space began to collapse. Su Fong was swept out of the space by a force and appeared above the Netherworld River. The Buddha's light outside the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light rapidly shrank and finally disappeared into the Netherworld River. Su Fong secretly said, "Qian Gang, I hope that the next time I see you, you'll have the power of the ruler of the Netherworld and revive the Buddhism in the myriad of worlds." Swoosh. Swoosh. Dixuan and the others flew towards Su Fong. Huang Lingyao asked anxiously, "Yuan Li, did you get the Crimson Spirit due?" Goli couldn't wait to ask, "My lord, did you finally reach the Nirvana realm and obtain the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha?" Chu Bingyin also asked at the same time, "Why didn't Qian Gang come out? Where'd he go?" Su Fong returned to the big goblin Yuan Li's cold and ferocious appearance. He said indifferently, "Since I was kicked out of the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light, I naturally couldn't reach the Nirvana realm. But Qian Gang stayed inside. The inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha must have been obtained by him." Huang Lingyao was immediately disappointed. Chu Bingyin was worried for Qian Gang, but he was also happy that he had obtained the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha. As for Qi Mian, Eli, and the others, their hearts were finally balanced. Qi Mian said with a look of regret, "Great Elder Yuan Li made a great vow to condense a giant ship of thousands of feet. I thought you could easily obtain the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha, but I didn't expect that in the end, it was Qian Gang who benefited. I really feel sorry for Great Elder Yuan Li. Qi Mian, I crush you once in the sea of bitterness. Do you think it's not enough? Do you want me to crush you again?" Su Fong sneered. His sharp eyes made Qi Mian feel cold all over. Even his divine aperture was about to be broken. He immediately trembled and didn't dare to say another word. Dixuan said, "Great Elder Yuan Li, what's your decision next?" Huang Lingyao reminded him, "Yuan Li, don't forget about the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel." Su Fong said, "I'm going to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel. After dealing with some important matters, I'll continue to look for the nether sand." Even if Huang Lingyao hadn't reminded him, Su Fong would have gone to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel first. Grandfather Soul was currently under the control of the Heavenly Wheel's master. Su Fong could put aside the nether sand, 9 nether embryo stone, and save Grandfather first. Eli said gloomily, "I came to the 9 Netherland to look for the nether sand. Now that I haven't found it, and Great Elder Yuan Li is busy with other matters, how will I explain it to the venerable emperors when I return to the Sky Beacon God Realm?" Then he glanced at Huang Lingyao and said, "This person is clearly an evil force from the Dark World. If I'm not wrong, she's the Xinming sect master who has joined the Tao-defying alliance. Great Elder Yuan Li is with her. Are you trying to defy the Tao-defying alliance?" Su Fong snorted, "Eli, when did you have a right to tell me what to do?" Huang Lingyao let out a cold laugh. "In the ruins of End Heaven? If it wasn't for me, you all would have died at the hands of Dongsha Mashing and evil Venerable Tian Du. Are you human cultivators all so ungrateful? In the 9 Netherland, I'm not afraid of any of you." The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Dixuan raised his eyebrows and was about to say something. Goli, who was hiding in the back, suddenly said, "My lord, if you want to go to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel, you must pass by the soul-sinking beach. The nether sand you're looking for is in the soul-sinking beach." Dixuan was surprised and happy. He said to Su Fong, "Great Elder Yuan Li, why don't we find the nether sand in the soul-sinking beach first, and then I'll accompany you to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel. What do you think?" Chapter 2443. Huang Lingyao said coldly, "Yuan Li, you'd better not forget that our family is in the hands of the Lord of Tianlin. If he loses his patience, you and I will regret it for the rest of our lives." "The Lord of Tianlin?" Dixuan looked at Su Fong in surprise. Su Fong hesitated for a moment, and then slowly told everyone about the fact that the soul of his family was controlled by the Lord of Tianlin. Hearing Su Fang's description of the dangers of the yin-yang heavenly wheel and the powerful primordial spirit of the Lord of Tianlin, everyone, including Di Xuan, was shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear and fear. After thinking for a moment, Di Xuan said to Su Fang, "In this case, after we find the nether sand and the soul-sinking beach and complete this task, I will accompany Great Elder Yuan Li and Xinming Sect Master to meet the Lord of Tianlin." Qi Mian stopped him loudly. "Lord Di Xuan, your status is noble. How can you take risks for a big goblin?" Di Xuan's face darkened, and he said majestically, "Great Elder Yuan Li has made great contributions to the human tribe, and this trip to the 9 Serenities is also thanks to him. I have decided to go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. As for the others, if they don't want to go, I won't force them." Then he cupped his fist to Huang Lingyao. "Thank you, Xinming Sect Master, for your help. When we reach the yin-yang heavenly wheel, I will do my best to help." Huang Lingyao snorted coldly and didn't say anything. The Lord of Tianlun was extremely powerful, and he controlled the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Huang Lingyao didn't have any confidence to save Shui Wuying's soul. Di Xuan was a peerless figure of the imperial people, and his strength was unfathomable. With his help, the chance of saving Shui Wuying's soul was naturally much greater. She naturally wouldn't refuse Di Xuan's kindness. Chu Bingyin said, "Count me in too." Mo Tiangong forced a smile and said, "My 3 disciples, and I will only be a burden if we go. Otherwise, we will definitely accompany Yuan Li on this trip." Qi Mian and Eli smiled coldly, but did not say anything. Su Fang nodded to Di Xuan, Chu Bingyin, and Mo Tiangong, and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions. Let's go." Di Xuan asked Go Li for the coordinates of the soul-sinking beach, and took out the measuring heaven longitude and latitude ruler. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The heaven measuring longitude, activated by Di Xuan, unleashed an astonishing power to distort space. A xianguang pierced through the void and instantly extended to infinity. Finally, the xianguang released by the measuring heaven measuring longitude and latitude ruler condensed into a netherworld river. There was a huge whirlpool above it, and a netherworld river disappeared into the whirlpool. Di Xuan asked Go Li, "This is the soul-sinking beach?" Go Li was shocked by the power of the measuring heaven measuring longitude and latitude ruler and stuttered, "My lord's divine tool is truly heaven-defying. That whirlpool is the entrance to the soul-sinking beach. Everyone, let's go." Di Xuan led everyone into the xianguang. The xianguang flickered rapidly, and when everyone returned to normal, they had already appeared above the huge whirlpool that appeared in the xianguang. They focused their eyes and looked. They saw the surging netherworld river pouring into the whirlpool from all sides, forming a huge whirlpool with an area of 10,000 li looking from the sky. It looked like a huge black hole that swallowed the entire netherworld river. The dark netherworld river swept countless remnant souls into the whirlpool, which was a spectacular and shocking scene. From the whirlpool, an astonishing power of twisting and devouring primordial spirit was released. Even with Su Fang's powerful primordial spirit, he felt that his divine aperture was shaken, and his primordial spirit was about to break out and be swallowed by the whirlpool. Except for Di Xuan and Huang Lingyao, the others were all trembling, and their faces were pale, especially Third Master. If Di Xuan had not released the power of his primordial spirit, his primordial spirit would have been torn apart by the power of the whirlpool in an instant. Su Fang raised his eyebrows and asked Go Li, "Do we have to enter the soul-sinking beach directly from this whirlpool?" Go Li nodded and said, "That's the only way. I can use the life and death cycle to pass through this whirlpool without being affected. If my lord and the others don't have powerful primordial spirit magic treasures, I'm afraid you will suffer some pain, and in the worst case, your divine aperture will be shattered and you will die." Everyone's expression became gloomy. Di Xuan asked in a deep voice, "Judge Ming, with the strength of great Elder Yuan Li, How likely do you think it is for him to safely pass through the whirlpool and reach this soul-sinking beach? Goli answered, My lord is unfathomable. It is not difficult for him to pass through alone. Besides, the power of his primordial spirit is extremely powerful. He should be able to release the power of his primordial spirit to protect another person. Su Fong nodded and said, I can take 2 people with me. Di Xuan and the others looked at Su Fong in disbelief. Huang Lingyao and Goli had seen Su Fong's powerful primordial spirit on the reincarnation platform. They did not find it strange that he could resist the attack of the master of Tian Luan's primordial spirit. Huang Lingyao said, I am the successor of the divine race of Yin Underworld. The power of the whirlpool is not a threat to me, but I can only take 1 person with me at most. Di Xuan said, Like great elder Yuan Li, I can protect 2 people to pass through the whirlpool. The others did not have the powerful primordial spirit of Su Fong and the others. Mo Tiangong, the 3 divine kings, and the 3 divine kings were all very powerful. The monarch god, the 3 treasure refiners, and Chu Bingyin all had helpless looks on their faces, while Qi Mian's face was filled with resentment. Eli was a little strange. He still looked gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. Su Fong's divine light swept over everyone and said, I will take Master Mo, Chu Bingyin, and the 3 divine kings to enter the soul-sinking beach under the protection of the Lord Di Xuan and the Xianming sect master. Qi Mian's face suddenly became very ugly. According to Su Fong's arrangement, it was equivalent to directly abandoning him and Eli. How could he not be angry? QL11, however, there was nothing he could do. He could not force them to pass through the whirlpool. Could he? What could he do when his skills were not as good as theirs? Eli sneered, but did not say anything. Great Elder Yuan, Li will protect Master Mo. Di Xuan frowned and immediately nodded. It seems that Great Elder Yuan Li is very confident in his primordial spirit. Very well, we will follow Great Elder Yuan Li's arrangement. Then he said to Eli and Qi Mian, You 2 stay here for the time being. After I enter this soul-sinking beach, we will see if we can find a way to return. Master Mo, Chu Bingyin, let's go. Su Fong activated the primordial spirit's divine power and enveloped Mo Tiangong and Chu Bingyin, forming a layer of primordial spirit's protective power. Then he flew toward the whirlpool above the river. Then Huang Lingyao led the 3 divine kings. Master Mo and Di Xuan led the other 2 artifact forging masters. Using the primordial spirit's divine power, they headed straight for the whirlpool. As soon as Su Fong approached the whirlpool, he immediately felt an illusory and terrifying primordial spirit's devouring power sweeping over like a storm. It wanted to pull his primordial spirit out and make it fall into the cycle of reincarnation forever. Mo Tiangong and Chu Bingyin were in even more danger. They felt that their divine apertures were about to shatter, and their primordial spirits were about to be sucked out of their divine apertures. Second primordial spirit, fuse. Su Fong's primordial spirit and second primordial spirit quickly fused, erupting with a shocking primordial spirit's power that blocked the primordial spirit's devouring power sweeping over. Only then did Mo Tiangong and Chu Bingyin feel a little better. They were extremely shocked by Su Fong's powerful primordial spirit's power that surpassed that of a master god. Huang Lingyao directly released a magic treasure that looked like a crescent moon. It was the horn of the supreme Emperor Mingyu that she had obtained from the gold Rainbow King's treasure. It released cold moonlight that was filled with the aura of death. It had a powerful primordial spirit's defensive power that protected her and 3 divine kings. The divine kings followed closely behind Su Fong and entered the whirlpool. Di Xuan also had an extraordinary primordial spirit-type magic treasure. It was a magic treasure that looked like a piece of jade. It released a warm and gentle crystal light. Its power was even more shocking than Huang Lingyao's supreme Emperor Mingyu's horn. In addition, Di Xuan's own primordial spirit's power was also very frightening. He looked very calm as he led the other 2 artifact forging masters. Soon, Su Fong, Di Xuan, and the others disappeared into the whirlpool. Yuanli, how dare you humiliate me, Qi Mian. I swear I will tear you into pieces. Looking at the huge whirlpool, Qi Mian couldn't help but gnash his teeth. Eli said coldly, Qi Mian, do you really want to kill Yuanli? Of course. Qi Mian snorted. We can't even pass through the whirlpool. How can we kill him? Eli inexplicably snorted and said, I have my own way to pass through the whirlpool and kill Yuanli. Qi Mian was surprised. You have a way to enter the soul-sinking beach? Why didn't you take it out just now? You didn't want to be humiliated by Yuanli. At this time, a voice came from nowhere. Eli's method is very simple. I will help you pass through the whirlpool, enter the soul-sinking beach, and kill the big goblin, Yuanli. Not far ahead, a demonic light flashed. Two figures quickly condensed and turned into two cultivators. They were not human cultivators, but demons in human form. You are the demon saint. Qi Mian's divine light changed instantly. A divine power surged out of his body and quickly formed a defense. Dongsha Masheng. The other demon was Dongsha Masheng's eldest son, the Prince of Dongjia. Unexpectedly, Dongsha Masheng had killed his way to the river Styx and even brought the Prince of Dongjia with him. Qi Mian looked at Eli, who was calm and collected. He suddenly realized something and shouted angrily, Eli, you colluded with the demon race. Eli said coldly, my Wushang clan has dealt with the demon race since ancient times. What's so strange about us colluding with the demon race now? The Prince of Dongjia chuckled. Father helped you kill that big goblin Yuanli. No, it should be Su Fong. You should be happy. Yuanli is Su Fong. That's impossible. Qi Mian was surprised and shocked. At this time, the Prince of Dongjia's eyes shot out a beam of demonic light and divine power. It quickly turned into a handprint and bombarded Qi Mian's defense. The Prince of Dongjia's strength surpassed that of a master god. Under his attack, Qi Mian's defense became as fragile as a piece of paper and shattered with a bang. The Prince of Dongjia suddenly opened his mouth and revealed his ferocious fangs. A burst of divine power erupted and shrouded Qi Mian. Qi Mian only lasted for a dozen breaths before he was swallowed into the Prince of Dongjia's stomach. Pa pa pa. The Prince of Dongjia's body wriggled. After a while, he turned into Qi Mian. Chapter 2444. It turned out that the Prince of Dongjia was transformed by Su Fong using the demon shape-shifting technique in the lifeless prairie. The demon race was ruthlessly teased, and both sides suffered great losses. At that time, the Prince of Dongjia was already suspicious. When the demon race captured domain Master Wuzhen, his demon shape-shifting technique was taken away by the demon race for research. After the Prince of Dongjia returned, he tried to get his hands on the demon shape-shifting technique. This Prince of Dongjia was also a genius of the demon race. He actually combined the demon shape-shifting technique with the demon race's forbidden technique of fusing human cultivators. After some cultivation and using the demon shape-shifting technique, not only could he devour cultivators and take over their bodies, even his aura would change. QL11 Dongsha Masheng sized up the Qi Mian and nodded. This technique is really extraordinary. It can easily change one's body and aura. No wonder Su Fong used the demon shape-shifting technique. With the big goblin's body, he could even deceive venerable sovereigns. Eli said fawningly, the Crown Prince has mastered such a powerful technique. This time, Su Fong won't be able to escape. Dongsha Masheng said majestically, if we can really kill Su Fong and obtain the Origin's sacred mirror, Eli, you and your E-clan will make a great contribution to the demon race. The benefits that the demon race promised to the E-clan will be doubled. Eli bowed and said, thank you, Lord Demon Saint. Dongsha Masheng said, Eli, this saint will temporarily hide in the demon tool. Take the demon tool with you, and this saint will help you pass through the whirlpool and enter the soul-sinking beach. Remember, don't act rashly if you don't have full confidence. Eli said, Lord Demon Saint, why don't you just kill your way to the soul-sinking beach and suppress Su Fong? Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Do you think Su Fong can be suppressed so easily? Even this saint, if I can't succeed in a sneak attack, it will be difficult for me to gain any advantage over Su Fong. Dong Xiaomosheng's words shocked Eli to the core. Su Fong is only at the Dao integration stage, but he is so powerful that he is qualified to fight against a supreme venerable? Fight? If I give him a chance to activate his magic weapon, and he has an Emperor Master beside him, if I don't launch a sneak attack, even this saint may be killed by him. Dong Xiaomosheng snorted, fear in his eyes. How is this possible? Eli's expression changed instantly. The Prince of Dongjia's eyes were also filled with solemnity and fear. When I was in the Dao Defiance Alliance, I heard that evil Lord Tian Du was killed by Su Fong. I only managed to survive by using the reincarnation life reversal scripture, but my vitality was greatly damaged, and I no longer had the strength of an evil lord. That's why I hurried to the 9th underworld to inform my Holy Father. Eli's face, which was originally full of malice, turned pale at this moment. Thinking of the disdain he had for Su Fong, who was disguised as Yuan Li, along the way, he shuddered with fear. Dong Xiaomosheng rolled out a black demonic orb from his palm, and his body quickly turned into an illusory state. He transformed into a cloud of demonic cloud and disappeared into the demonic orb. Eli absorbed the demonic orb into his body, and then possessed the prince of Dongjia's body, Qi Mian, and flew toward the whirlpool. Boom! Su Fong withstood the impact and shackles of the vital spirit inside the whirlpool, and together with Chu Bingyin and Mo Tiangong, they were washed into the cold and still water by the rolling Netherworld River. The vital spirit pressure immediately disappeared, and the surrounding Netherworld River did not pose much of a threat to Su Fong, Chu Bingyin, and Mo Tiangong. After being washed by the river water for some distance, they quickly rushed out of the water. The three of them steadied themselves in the air and looked back, and immediately fell into an intense shock. They entered another space-time plane from the whirlpool, and that whirlpool was the passage that connected the two planes. They saw the rolling Netherworld River water falling from the sky like the Milky Way, and it was a spectacular sight. The river water rushed into the plane, forming a vast ocean. Shocking loud noises reverberated in the plane, constantly attacking the vital spirit, and wanted to make people fall into the cycle of reincarnation. How is this soul-sinking beach? It should be called soul-sinking sea. Seeing such a natural wonder of heaven and earth, Su Fong was also shocked. Di Xuan, Huang Lingyao, and the treasure refiner they were protecting, as well as underworld Judge Go Li, all successfully entered the soul-sinking beach from the whirlpool. When they came out of the water, they were also shocked to see this scene. When they passed through the whirlpool, their divine apertures were attacked, and their vital spirits were greatly damaged. Not only Mo Tiangong's three successors, but even Di Xuan's face was somewhat pale. When they saw that Su Fong, Mo Tiangong, and Chu Bingyin were all safe and sound, they were immediately shocked and were amazed by the power of Su Fong's vital spirit. Goli suddenly shouted, "Nether sand? Quickly look, that's nether sand." Su Fong used the Great Perfection stage ability and looked carefully. He saw that in the river that fell from the sky, there would occasionally be things the size of rice grains like black gravels flying out of the water. These gravels flashed with cold black xianguang, and they were the size of rice grains, but they actually emitted a terrifying power that could make souls fall into the cycle of reincarnation. Before this, Goli had introduced the origin of nether sand. It was the nether souls that had fallen into the nether river. When a nether river passed through the two planes of space-time, it was distorted by the space-time planes, and the terrifying power of the vital spirit condensed. Nether sand, that's right, that's nether sand. Mo Tiangong exclaimed loudly, appearing abnormally excited. 3. The Divine Lord was surprised and happy, and was about to rush over to collect the nether sand. Goli hurriedly stopped him. "Sir, please wait." 3. The Divine Lord asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Goli explained, "The nether sand is definitely not something that can be collected so easily. It is extremely dangerous, without waiting for him to finish his words. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From the soul-sinking beach below, black shadows rushed out. The smaller ones were only a foot long, and they looked like strange black fish with sharp teeth. The bigger ones were hundreds of feet long, and they looked like flood dragons. They were emitting a murderous aura, and their faces were ferocious. There was a sharp blade-like horn on their heads. These nether monsters rushed out of the water, going against the current, and then rushed over to the newly condensed nether sand, crazily snatching and killing. The black fish-like nether monsters were not powerful, but there were many of them, and they had merged with the nether river. If one was not fighting for the nether sand, it would be very difficult to sense their existence. The flood dragon-like nether monsters were even more terrifying. In the nether river, each of them was no weaker than a Lord God. There were more than a dozen of them, and it was unknown how many were hidden in the soul-sinking beach. Then, everyone realized that once the nether sand fell into the soul-sinking beach, it would immediately disappear without a trace, as if it had melted. Even the nether monsters could not capture it. Dixuan laughed bitterly. Looks like it isn't so easy to gather nether sand. Mo Tiangong frowned and said, let's not talk about those nether monsters first. Isn't the amount of nether sand a little too little? After observing for a while, they noticed that over a dozen grains of nether sand would be separated from the surging nether river every 2 hours, and the nether monsters would fight to devour them. A very small amount of them would fall into the soul-sinking beach and vanish without a trace. According to Mo Tiangong's estimations, every single magic treasure would have to be infused with at least 100 grains of nether sand in order to allow a magic treasure to possess the ability to restrain Tao defiance and cause them to fall into the cycle of reincarnation. If it was some formidable magic treasures, then even more nether sand would be required. However, there was so little nether sand every single time, and they had to face so many nether monsters. So, when would they be able to gather enough nether sand? We can only gather it slowly. There's no other way. Dixuan was very helpless as well. He had never thought that after finding nether sand with so much difficulty, it would be so troublesome to obtain it. Su Fong was greatly disappointed as well. Nether sand was a spiritual item that contained the essence of extreme Yin. He was prepared to obtain some to refine his magic treasures, especially the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. If he fused it with nether sand, its might would definitely increase by quite a lot. However, the amount required would definitely be shocking. Su Fong became rather anxious. If they spent too much time gathering nether sand, it would be rather dangerous for his grandfather, who ended up in the hands of the Sky Wheel Lord. They left the surface of the soul-sinking beach and arrived on the shore. The shore of the soul-sinking beach was covered in black reefs. All of them were condensed from the aura of the underworld. They were icy cold and filled with the aura of death. Even overgods would not be able to endure it if they stayed here for long periods of time. They would be forced to circulate their energy to defend themselves at all times. Everyone created formations on the reefs to isolate the icy aura of the underworld. They treated it as a temporary resting place. Next, they discussed taking turns to gather nether sand. Unexpectedly, Chi Mian and Eli broke through the surface of the soul-sinking beach and flew towards them. Everyone was very surprised. Dixuan asked, "How did the two of you safely pass through the whirlpool?" Eli said indifferently, "After all, the two of us are from the ancient god clan. How could we not have powerful, primordial, soul-type magic treasures? Although our divine apertures were slightly damaged when we passed through the whirlpool, it was not difficult to pass through the whirlpool." Dixuan and the others no longer had any doubts. Su Fong's perfected sensing ability swept over Chi Mian and Eli, and a ball of doubt immediately surged in his heart. Chi Mian did not seem to have any abnormalities. However, Su Fong had a perfect physical body and an amazing sensing ability. Moreover, he had mastered the life shrinking technique. He was extremely sensitive to the aura of destiny. When Su Fong saw Chi Mian for the first time, he immediately sensed that there was something wrong with him. Chi Mian and Eli's actions are indeed suspicious. Life shrinking technique. Su Fong immediately used the life shrinking technique to sense Qi Mian's aura of destiny. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A familiar aura of destiny caused the Tao of destiny in Su Fong's mind to flash rapidly. Finally, it condensed into a figure in his mind. It was not Qi Mian. It was a demon expert that Su Fong was very familiar with. It was the Prince of Dongjia. Qi Mian was actually possessed by the Prince of Dongjia. Moreover, the possession technique he used is very similar to the demon transformation technique. What a good Prince of Dongjia. If I did not have the ability to sense destiny, I would have been killed by him. Chapter 2445. Qi Mian had been possessed by the Prince of Dongjia. Su Fong's heart was in turmoil, but his face remained calm. Since Qi Mian is problematic, Eli is definitely not that simple. Su Fong continued to use the life shrinking technique to sense Eli. There was nothing unusual about Eli's fate aura. However, Su Fong could sense an extremely ethereal fate aura from Eli's body. Moreover, it was very familiar. Dongsha Masheng. Dongsha Masheng is actually hiding in Eli's body. Due to the isolation of the artifact, I can't sense his fate Qi, but his fate Qi can't be wrong. Dongsha Masheng and the Prince of Dongjia. This time I'll make you go for wool, but come home shorn. Su Fong's heart surged with a fierce aura. Su Fong was very confident that he could kill Dongsha Masheng, since he was able to kill the evil dominator of Tiandu. But it's best not to expose my identity, and I have to protect Mo Tiangong in case Dongsha Masheng is desperate. Su Fong began to think of a countermeasure. Next, Dixuan arranged for everyone to take turns to collect the nether sand. There was only a certain amount of nether sand that appeared each time. It was useless no matter how many people went. It would only waste their energy. With everyone's strength, except for Mo Tiangong and his 3 disciples, they were not afraid of facing those nether monsters alone. The only trouble was that it would take a lot of time. Dixuan was the first to go. After a month, he came back with thousands of nether sand in his hand. Mo Tiangong found that the moment the nether sand left the range of the soul-sinking beach, the reincarnation power it contained was quickly dissipating. He and the other 3 artifact refiners hurriedly entered the array, took out the cauldron, and used a special hand seal to refine it. Only then could they bring it out of the 9 underworlds and integrate it into the artifact of the cultivators, becoming a great weapon to kill the Defiance. Next, everyone went to collect the nether sand one by one. Even Eli, Qi Mian, and Huang Lingyao came forward one after another. Because the nether river that fell from the sky contained the terrifying impact of the primordial spirit, it was impossible to use the world god's might in a large area. It could only be collected near the nether river. In addition, there were also the netherworld monsters in the soul-sinking beach. Although they were not life-threatening, it was still quite a challenge for everyone. Based on the amount of nether sand collected and the amount of nether sand, one could determine one's strength. Among them, Qi Mian was the weakest. In fact, he was currently possessed by the Prince of Dongjia, and his true strength was only slightly inferior to Dixuan's. Then there was Chu Bingyan. Compared to Dixuan and Huang Lingyao, he was obviously much weaker. Finally, it was Su Fong's turn. He came to the soul-sinking beach and stood in the air with his hands behind his back. Whoosh, whoosh. More nether sand flew out from the nether river's water that flowed down. Countless black fishes and dragon-like netherworld monsters shot out from the soul-sinking beach. The nether river that flowed down was extremely vast, covering an area of tens of thousands of miles. Countless netherworld monsters gathered into a black tide and suddenly burst out from the water. The scene was very shocking. At this time, Su Fong suddenly burst into a monstrous demonic fire and quickly turned into a fire cloud, covering the water for tens of thousands of miles. The terrifying demonic fire blocked the sight of the people on the shore and burned the netherworld monsters that rushed toward the nether sand. The entire soul-sinking beach was boiling. Qi Mian, who was possessed by the Prince of Dongjia, said in surprise, "What is he doing?" Exion snorted and said, "He made such a big fuss, but he only collected a dozen grains of nether sand. He will run out of energy before he can collect more nether sand. He is just playing to the gallery." Chi Mian sent a telepathic message. That might not be the case. Su Fong would never do anything meaningless. You must be careful. The Prince of Dongjia was indeed a peerless genius of the demon race. He immediately guessed that Su Fong had other intentions, but he could not guess Su Fong's true intentions. Su Fong purposely made such a big scene to deceive others. He used the demonic fire as a cover and released Shroud's doppelganger to quickly enter the soul-sinking beach. The purpose of this was to let Shroud's doppelganger recover his strength. The enemy he was about to face was an extremely powerful demon saint. His strength was definitely higher than evil Lord Tian Du and Su Fong's trump card to deal with Dongsha Masheng. Other than the Origin Sacred Mirror, was Shroud's doppelganger. There was still a fierce battle waiting for Su Fong in the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel. Therefore, Su Fong would not use the Origin Sacred Mirror easily. He could only rely on Shroud's doppelganger. There were so many nether monsters in the soul-sinking beach. Su Fong could not find the 9 nether embryo stone. He could only let Shroud's doppelganger devour the nether monsters to recover his strength. As for how much strength Shroud's doppelganger could recover, Su Fong did not have much confidence. In addition, he let Shroud's doppelganger hide in the soul-sinking beach. When he really confronted Dongsha Masheng, he might be able to use it as a surprise attack. QL11, when the demonic fire dissipated, countless nether monsters were killed by Su Fong. In Su Fong's hands, there were more than a dozen nether sand. Shroud doppelganger also quietly entered the soul-sinking beach. Returning to the shore, Su Fong handed the nether sand to Mo Tongong and then entered the formation on the reef. Sitting down cross-legged, Su Fong transmitted his primordial spirit to Di Xuan. Di Xuan quickly responded, "Great Elder Yuanli, what's the matter? Be careful and protect Master Mo and his 3 successors. You have to be careful too." Why is that? Could it be that there's something wrong with Chi Mian and Eli? Di Xuan was also a powerful person. Seeing Su Fong so cautious, he immediately thought of Chi Mian and Eli, who came to the soul-sinking beach later. Their actions were indeed suspicious. After Su Fong's reminder, Di Xuan directly went to the reef where Mo Tiangong and the 3 artifact forging masters were and sat in the formation. Even if Dongsha Masheng personally attacked, it would be impossible to kill Mo Tiangong in one fell swoop and give Su Fong enough time to prepare. Time flew, and soon 100 years had passed. Everyone was surprised to find that there were fewer and fewer nether monsters in the soul-sinking beach. Later, whenever nether sand appeared, they could no longer see the tide-like black fish and flood dragon monsters. In this way, it became much easier to collect nether sand, which made everyone surprised and happy. They would never have thought that the reason for all this was Shroud's doppelganger that Su Fong had secretly placed in the soul-sinking beach. Shroud was the supreme ruler of the 10 underworlds. When Shroud's doppelganger released a little bit of his aura, those nether monsters were scared half to death and were slaughtered by Shroud's doppelganger. After being cleaned by Shroud's doppelganger in the soul-sinking beach, most of the nether monsters were devoured. After 100 years of accumulation, the amount of nether sand collected was quite considerable. However, it was still far from the goal of this trip. Huang Lingyao was worried about the safety of her sister's soul, so she began to become anxious and kept urging Su Fong. On this day, Shroud's doppelganger suddenly transmitted a thought, but because he had no self-awareness, his thoughts were vague and unclear. Su Fong could not understand what it meant. Su Fong projected the power of his Yuan spirit, and soon found Shroud's doppelganger in the depths of the soul-sinking beach. He separated a wisp of his Yuan spirit and merged it with Shroud's doppelganger. He immediately found that after 100 years of devouring nether monsters, Shroud's doppelganger had recovered a lot. At the very least, he had the strength of an ordinary Emperor Realm Master. However, there was still a big gap between him and his peak state. It seemed that he had to find the 9 nether embryo stone in order to let Shroud's doppelganger regain his previous strength. Devouring nether monsters could only keep him alive at most. With the help of Shroud's doppelganger's eyes, Su Fong saw a shocking scene. There is actually another world in the depths of the soul-sinking beach. At the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, there was a naturally formed barrier. This barrier was extremely powerful, and one could vaguely see another world inside. Let's go in and take a look. Su Fong transmitted a thought to Shroud's doppelganger. Shroud's doppelganger flew towards the natural barrier and directly merged into it. The incomparably powerful barrier seemed to be defenseless against him. Inside the barrier was an independent space-time. This was caused by the constant compression of the underworld force at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, causing the space to distort. This space was not large, only a little more than 1,000 kilometers in size, but it was filled with astonishing Yuan spirit power that could affect even Emperor Realm Masters. Shroud's doppelganger did not seem to have any abnormalities. As soon as he entered the space, he immediately became excited, and, without waiting for Su Fong to give him an order, he flew towards a dark mountain range that was more than 12 kilometers in size. His body quickly became illusory and merged into the mountain range. This was the amazing thing about the supreme ruler of the underworld. Shroud's doppelganger could control all matter, energy, and even nether monsters condensed from underworldine force. Su Fong's Yuan spirit consciousness was shocked to discover that this mountain range actually contained the same kind of energy as nether sand, releasing an incomparably terrifying Yuan spirit power and a kind of illusory reincarnation force. He analyzed that the nether sand that had disappeared from the soul-sinking beach had not really disappeared, but had been absorbed into this space and accumulated over the years, forming this mountain range together with other impurities. Then, as Shroud's doppelganger went deep into the mountain range, an astonishing Yuan spirit impact and pressure seeped into Shroud's divine aperture. Shroud's doppelganger did not feel anything, but Su Fong's Yuan spirit consciousness was shattered by the impact. On the reef on the shore of the soul-sinking beach, Su Fong's face turned pale, but soon returned to normal. Losing a wisp of his Yuan spirit consciousness had caused Su Fong's Yuan spirit to suffer some damage, but it was very slight and almost negligible. There is so much nether sand. If I can get all of it, it should be enough. And that space is a good place to kill the Prince of Dongjia and Dongsha Masheng. After thinking for a while, Su Fong's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. Dongsha Masheng and the Prince of Dongjia would seize the opportunity to attack sooner or later. Instead of that, it would be better to take the initiative and lure them to the bottom of the soul-sinking beach to kill them. Chapter 2446. Su Fong started to think about how to lure Dongsha Masheng, or the Prince of Dongjia, into the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. Chu Bingyan returned from above the soul-sinking beach and collected a huge amount of nether sand. After he handed the nether sand to Imo Tiangong, Chu Bingyan suddenly sent a voice transmission to Di Xuan and Su Fong. Lord Di Xuan, Grand Elder Yuan Li, Di Xuan and Su Fong flew out from the formations on their respective reefs. Chu Bingyan, what's the matter? Chu Bingyan said, I'm thinking of searching for a fortuitous encounter in the soul-sinking beach, so I'm reporting to both of you. So, Chu Bingyan cultivated in the Grand Dao of Ice, and it was an extremely unique icy flame technique. He needed to search for spirit water of extreme and extreme coldness to cleanse his body. At the same time, such spirit water was extremely useful for tempering his heavenly Dao Dharma idol and improving the might of his divine ability. This was the main reason why Chu Bingyan had taken the risk to enter the ninth hell. Qian had just obtained the inheritance of the Ksitigarbha Buddha, yet he hadn't obtained anything until now. So, how could he not be anxious? Spirit water of extreme and extreme coldness? Su Fong thought in his heart. He recalled the nether spring that he'd obtained with the bald middle-aged man and the young Dao Defiant when he just entered the ninth hell. Take a look and see if this is helpful to your cultivation. Su Fong waved his hand and swept out a strand of demonic qi from his palm, and then a storage ring flew towards Chu Bingyan. Chu Bingyan entered the storage ring with his consciousness, and he was instantly pleasantly surprised. This is the legendary Nether Spring? Moreover, there's so much of it. Thank you, Grand Elder Yuan Li. Su Fong asked, is this much Nether Spring enough? Chu Bingyin smiled embarrassedly. This Nether Spring is definitely enough to cultivate the heavenly Tao Dharma idol. However, its quality is slightly inferior if it's used to cleanse the body. This is a rare opportunity to enter the ninth underworld. If I don't go to the depths of the soul-sinking beach to search for it, I will be very unwilling. Di Xian raised his eyebrows. I don't know why those nether creatures suddenly disappeared from the soul-sinking beach, but the inside of the soul-sinking beach is still incomparably dangerous. You entering the soul-sinking beach alone, isn't it extremely dangerous? Su Fong suddenly said, in that case, this venerable will accompany you. Within the prison suppression codex, Chu Bingyin's master had stepped forward and sacrificed himself to give Su Fong a chance to escape. Before his death, he had entrusted Chu Bingyin to Su Fong. Su Fong had always remembered this favor. Chu Bingyin wanted to search for opportunities. If Su Fong could help, he would naturally help. In addition, Su Fong had been worrying about not having a chance to lure Dongsha Masheng and the Prince of Dongjia to the space at the bottom of Soul-Sinking Beach. If he accompanied Chu Bingyin to the depths of Soul-Sinking Beach, Dongsha Masheng would definitely not be able to sit still. Chu Bingyin was surprised and delighted. Then, he hesitated. How can I repay Great Elder Yuan Li for treating me so well? Su Fong said indifferently. This venerable one is also going to enter Soul-Sinking Beach to search for treasures that contain the essence of Yin. Accompanying you is just a matter of convenience. You don't have to thank me. At this moment, Eli flew over from the reef. Great Elder Yuan Li and Chu Bingyin are planning to enter Soul-Sinking Beach. It just so happens that I am also going to search for treasures to refine my heavenly Tao Dharma idol. Why don't we travel together? It will be much safer this way. Su Fong sneered in his heart. As expected, he took the bait. Chu Bingyin, you should recover first. After 10 years, you will enter Soul-Sinking Beach. After saying this, Su Fong left in embarrassment and returned to the formation on the reef. Just as he sat down with his legs crossed, Dixuan transmitted his primordial spirit. Great Elder Yuan Li, Eli suggested to enter Soul-Sinking Beach with you. I think she is plotting something against you. Don't worry, this venerable one already has a plan. Su Fong replied. After this venerable one enters Soul-Sinking Beach, you can make your move. Dixuan snorted. I want to see what Qi Mian is plotting. Su Fong reminded. Dixuan, don't be careless. If this venerable one is right, Qi Mian has already been possessed by Dongsha Masheng's eldest son, Prince of Dongjia. This demon once fought against Di Yuan in the wasteland, and his strength surpasses that of a Lord God. Prince of Dongjia, Dixuan was surprised and shocked, but soon after, he was a little doubtful. After ending the conversation with Dixuan, Su Fong began to settle down and enter a state of cultivation. He continued to cultivate the 9 suns, 9 transformations, and the heavenly secret life shrinking technique. At the same time, he continued to comprehend the Advent life reversal scripture and integrate the Paramitha Buddhasarira that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had given him. He was making the final preparations to become a Lord God. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Fong crushed a piece of the heavenly secret life shrinking technique rune inside the formation. After crushing it, it released the power of destiny and quickly covered up all the auras in the space inside the formation. Then, Su Fong released more than 100 big goblin from the Xianwang 6 Paths Pagoda, led by the lion demon Sherba. There were 10 Lord-level big goblins, while the rest had reached the late-stage Dao integration stage. After so many years of training and an endless supply of resources, these big goblins had already completely submitted to Su Fong. Therefore, Su Fong dared to release them without any worries to prevent any accidents from happening. Su Fong said, Sherba, take these big goblin and stay here. Assist Dixuan in killing the Prince of Dongjia. Especially protect Grandmaster Mo Tiangong. Divine Lord. Yes, Master. Leaving behind many big goblin, Su Fong walked out of the formation. Huang Lingyao's cold and embarrassed voice sounded. Yuan Li, we've been delayed for so long. If we delay any longer, our loved ones will be in great danger. I don't dare to continue wasting time here. When will we go to the Yin Yang Heavenly Wheel? Give me an exact time. Su Fong waved his hand and rolled out a sealed Xian Guang, flying it to Huang Lingyao. Huang Lingyao asked in confusion. This is Su Fong transmitted his thoughts. There's a drop of crimson spirit dew sealed in it. It should be enough for your sister's soul. I'm going to solve a small problem now. It won't be long before we can go to the Yin Yang Heavenly Wheel together. Crimson spirit dew? Huang Lingyao was surprised and happy. She quickly sucked the Xian Guang in her body and checked it carefully. She was delighted again. Only then did she realize that Su Fong had not gained nothing in the sea of bitterness. He might have even obtained a great fortune. This big goblin Yuan Li is really extraordinary. I'm afraid that even Su Fong is not as good as him. How did Su Fong subdue him? Huang Lingyao looked at Su Fong's figure and felt that he was more mysterious. Su Fong, Chu Bingyan, and Eli each cast their defenses and entered the soul-sinking beach, quickly flying to the depths. The underworld river in the soul-sinking beach was not real water, but a liquid substance condensed by the chi of the underworld and the power of samsara. Not only was it extremely cold, but it also contained the aura of death. It had the ability to shackle and devour life and blood chi, and it also contained the power to oppress the vital spirit. It was a huge threat to any living being. The deeper they went into the soul-sinking beach, the more shocking the aura of death and coldness. The three of them also slowed down. They had to circulate their demon chi and divine vitality to resist the shackles around them. Fortunately, there was no underworld monster in the soul-sinking beach, which made it much easier for them. Along the way, Su Fong was always vigilant and did not dare to be careless. This time, they were facing a demon saint and not an ordinary enemy. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. How could he not be careful? About 10 days later, under Su Fong's conscious guidance, they arrived at the boundary at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. I didn't expect there to be such a world in the soul-sinking beach. Eli exclaimed in surprise. Chu Bingyan's eyes flashed with a hale and hearty light. There must be treasures inside the boundary. Maybe there's the extreme yin and extreme cold spiritual water that I need. Su Fong said indifferently, We are here to find treasures. Since we have encountered it, we naturally have to go in and take a look. Eli, try to tear the boundary. You dare to order me? Eli's face was full of anger, but he soon returned to normal. He laughed coldly. How dare I disobey the orders of Yuan, Li's great elder? In reality, there was a sharp, murderous aura flashing in his deep eyes. Soon after, it was hidden in his deep eyes. Chi, a black Xian Guang shot up into the sky from Eli's head. It tore the surrounding underworld river water apart and swept to the side, forming a space of 100 square miles. The black Xian Guang quickly condensed into an arrow that was 10 feet long. It exuded an astonishing power of destruction, which made Su Fong's heart palpitate. It was as if the life and blood in his body were frozen. Eli had directly used his heavenly Tao Dharma form. Break! Eli pointed at the boundary. The Dharma form arrow, which had the power to tear the sky apart and destroy all life, landed on the boundary. Boom! Crack! 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 Under Eli's full-powered attack, the boundary shook violently. Then, it tore a hole that was 10 feet wide. Such a powerful attack could kill an ordinary upper-rank lord. Even peak lord-level powerhouses would have to avoid it. Eli looked pleased with himself. He took the lead and entered the crack in a flash. QL-11, Su Fong, and Chu Bingyan followed closely behind and entered the boundary. The naturally formed boundary quickly closed up and returned to its original state. Just as Su Fong, Chu Bingyan, and Eli entered the boundary, Chi Mian had finished collecting nether sand above soul-sinking beach. He flew toward the shore. Dishuan flew over from the shore. Chi Mian asked in surprise, Lord Dishuan, what is it? Dixuan's expression was grave. He transmitted his primordial spirit. I suspect that big goblin Yuanli. Chi Mian said in surprise, Is there something suspicious about big goblin Yuanli? Dixuan was about to speak when he suddenly looked toward the center of soul-sinking beach. He exclaimed loudly, What's that? Chi Mian was shocked and stunned. Just as he was about to transmit his sensing power, a shadow suddenly shot out of Dixuan's eyes. In an instant, it condensed into a celestial mountain that had shrunk countless times. It crashed toward Chi Mian with a loud boom. Dixuan? Chi Mian was shocked and furious. In his haste, he only had time to release his divine power to defend himself. His divine body was shattered by Dixuan's attack. He instantly turned into a ball of rolling demonic light. A furious voice came from the demonic light. Dixuan, how did you see through my demon shape-shifting technique? Dixuan sneered indifferently. Yuan Li's first elder is indeed observant. Not only did he see that Chi Mian was possessed, but he also determined that you are the Prince of Dongjia. Die. After killing you, I still have to help Yuan Li kill Eli. Yuan Li. Chapter 2447. Su Fong, Chu Bingyan, and Eli entered the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. The Black Mountain Range inside the barrier released a terrifying pressure on their primordial spirits, causing the three of them to sway and almost lose control. Chu Bingyan and Eli were shocked. They hurriedly used their primordial spirits to stabilize the defense of their divine apertures. Only then did they stabilize themselves. Su Fong had already expected this, but he still pretended to be affected and also staggered along with him. What is that mountain range? Chu Bingyan and Eli projected their primordial spirits to investigate the Black Mountain Range. Su Fong was secretly communicating with Shroud's clone. Due to the influence of the nether sand in the Black Mountain Range, as well as some other unknown reasons, Su Fong sensed that Shroud's clone was still in the depths of the Black Mountain Range. Its aura had become extremely faint. If Shroud's clone had not been created by Su Fong using the Origin Sacred Mirror, and the two of them were connected by fate and karma, it would have been impossible to sense his existence. Su Fong was astonished. Strange, Shroud clone seems to have become stronger. But this is a good thing. Then Su Fong transmitted his thoughts to the big goblin and experts in the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. He asked them to channel all their energy into their natal magic treasures. Then, through the power of their natal magic treasures, all the energy seeped into Su Fong's flesh and blood. That mountain range actually contains nether sand. Eli discovered some clues from the Black Mountain Range. She was shocked and pleasantly surprised. Then I would like to congratulate Lord Demon Saint. You have finally found a suitable place to be buried. Su Fong's voice, which was filled with killing intent, suddenly rang out. Eli's divine light changed instantly. Before he could react, Su Fong's fist, which contained a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth, came crashing down on him. Su Fong's apocalyptic punch in his natal state had already surpassed the peak of the Overgod realm and reached the level of a supreme sovereign. He could even severely injure a supreme sovereign. Moreover, Su Fong's punch was a sneak attack. In the blink of an eye, the attack had enveloped Eli. He had no time to react. Boom! A demonic aura rose from Eli's body. But before it could form a defense on the surface of Eli's divine body, it was smashed into pieces by Su Fong's devastating punch. Eli's divine body was immediately torn apart and turned into blood and gore. Finally, under the destructive power of the Fist of Destruction, she was reduced to nothingness. A black demonic bead was sent flying. It made a series of cracking sounds and almost shattered. Dark demonic light gushed out of the devil orb and instantly condensed into the figure of Dongsha Mashing. Su Fong, you actually discovered me. How did you do it? Dongsha Mashing's eyes were filled with surprise and shock. It was too surprising. He was originally hiding in Eli's body. With his powerful strength as a great demon saint and the protection of his supreme demonic weapon, he had planned to launch a sneak attack on Su Fong and suppress him in one fell swoop. He did not expect that. Dong Xiaomasheng did not expect that Su Fong would still see through him even though he had hidden so well. How could he not be shocked? Chu Bingyin was sent flying by the shockwave caused by the power of Su Fongda's apocalyptic punch. He also suffered some minor injuries, but his heart was filled with shock. How could he care about those injuries? Dong Xiaomasheng, Su Fong. Chu Bingyin was dumbfounded. His face was full of disbelief. How could a demon god like you know about my, Su Fong's, divine powers? Su Fong said domineeringly. Although he was still in the form of the big goblin Yuan Li, his voice had changed into his original voice. Extraordinary, truly extraordinary. For a human cultivator to have such a peerless character like you, it is no wonder that you are regarded as the savior of the myriad worlds. The Eastern demon saint praised. Then he smiled coldly. It's my great honor to be able to kill a peerless human cultivator with my own hands and completely cut off the hope of mankind. Chu Bingyin could finally conclude that the big goblin Yuan Li was Su Fong. He was surprised and happy. Su Fong, you didn't go into seclusion in Yuan Tiangong, but came to the Nine Serenities? Su Fong nodded and said, now is not the time to talk. Protect yourself and don't get involved. After I kill Dong Xiaomasheng, I'll talk to you in detail. Dong Xiaomasheng laughed wildly. Kill me? What a madman who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Release the Emperor Realm Master beside you, and take out the Origin Sacred Mirror. Let's see if you can kill this saint. As his laughter echoed, shadows separated from his body and quickly turned into giant, gluttonous demons. They opened their bloody mouths like sunflowers and charged towards Su Fong and Chu Bingyin with burning devil chi. There were a total of 12 Gorb demons. Every single one of them was only 300 meters long, but every single one of them possessed the terrifying strength of a peak over God. Chu Bingyin's divine light instantly changed. Su Fong's expression also changed slightly. He had released over 1,000 big goblin and experts in one go. Heavens? Shui 7 Zilu Zhongsho, Ing Xian Xian Xiao, forcing the four-cut Kuei to match the Kuei. Yue then, Su Fong released Gui Gui and the Dragon Bird. His second primordial spirit also turned into a black Xianguang and instantly charged towards the Gorb demons. Su Fong was still not at ease. He took out the evil god flag and released countless resurrected experts. They swept towards the Gorb demons with monstrous death chi. A chaotic battle immediately unfolded in the narrow space. In this space, due to the suppression of the primordial spirit released by the Black Mountain Range, no matter if it was the Gorb demons, big goblin, or cultivators, their primordial spirits were affected. It was difficult for them to unleash their full strength. Therefore, the scene of the battle was not that shocking. You have quite a lot of experts under you. You even have the supreme saint weapon of the evil Lord Tiandu. However, this saint only needs to suppress you. Everything else is fleeting. Dong Xiaomasheng sneered disdainfully and charged towards Su Fong. Heaven's Supervisor Token. Prison Suppressing Codex. Su Fong took out the Heaven Supervisor Token. Like the embodiment of the Heavenly Tao's order, it released a supreme divine power that restricted the operation of the Heavenly Tao and shackled the space around Dong Xiaomasheng. Then, Su Fong activated the Prison Suppressing Codex and cooperated with the Heaven Supervisor Token. The open Black Book released a black Xianguang that enveloped Dong Xiaomasheng and was about to suck him into the Codex. If these two heavenly law divine weapons were not damaged, this saint would have no choice but to surrender when your cultivation level has reached the venerable sovereign level. Kikik, it's far from enough to suppress me now. A white Xianguang suddenly erupted from Dong Xiaomasheng's body. It was extremely evil and condensed into threads that quickly intertwined into a huge net, isolating the power of the Heaven Supervisor Token and the Prison Suppressing Codex. The huge net rolled backwards. The white Xianguang that erupted was like a huge wave piled up by white bones. It looked like it was about to engulf the two heavenly law divine weapons. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the Heaven Supervisor Token condensed into chains of order and collided with a huge net cast by Dong Xiaomasheng, causing a large-scale explosion. Suddenly, shock flashed in Dongsha Moshing's eyes. After a flash of demonic light, he disappeared without a trace. The huge net that swept towards the Heavens Supervisor token and the Prison Suppressing Codex also rapidly dissipated. A black-robed man walked out of the void as if he had come from beyond the heavens. It was Mystery's clone. Su Fong immediately sensed that Mystery's clone's aura had become even more illusory and was clearly much stronger than before. He was instantly surprised and delighted. "Mystery, what happened? How did you become so powerful in such a short period of time?" Su Fong immediately communicated with Mystery mentally. Mystery's clone replied coldly, "The 9 Nether Fetus Stone." "The 9 Nether Fetus Stone? You found the 9 Nether Fetus Stone in a mountain range that contains nether sand?" This time, Su Fong was both surprised and delighted. It was simply too unexpected. QL11 his goal in coming to the 9 Netherland was to find the nether sand and the 9 Nether Fetus Stone. Unexpectedly, not only did he find a large amount of nether sand in the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, he also found the 9 Nether Fetus Stone. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was not very strange to find the 9 Nether Fetus Stone here. According to the Moon Frost Thorch, the 9 Nether Fetus Stone was the essence of the power of extreme that was nurtured at the bottom of the Nether River by the powerful souls that had entered the cycle of reincarnation. It was naturally very normal to find a 9 Nether Fetus Stone at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. Moreover, Mystery's clone had an extraordinary sensing ability towards the 9 Nether Fetus Stone, so it was not strange for him to find this place. What surprised Su Fong was that Shroud's avatar was nothing more than an avatar shroud that Su Fong had created using the Chaos Divine Mirror and the 4 Divisions transformation. It originally didn't have its own consciousness and was just like an incomparably powerful puppet. Ever since entering the 9 Netherland, Mystery's clone actually gradually gained some self-awareness and could even speak. Mystery's clone has changed. This is a good thing. Let's kill Dongsha Moshing first. Su Fong immediately transmitted his thoughts to Mystery's clone. He also activated the Heaven Supervisor token and joined forces to kill Dongsha Moshing. Just as Su Fongda was fighting Dongsha Moshing, an unexpected change happened outside the soul-sinking beach. Dixuan used the heavenly Dao Dharma form to shackle the Prince of Dongxia. Mo Tiangong, Huang Lingyao, and the rest walked out of the array formation. When they saw this scene, they were instantly shocked and stunned. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a wave of demonic aura swept out from the reformation where Qi Mian was previously and went straight for Mo Tiangong. The Prince of Dongxia, who was shackled by Dixuan, laughed wildly. "Dixuan, I'm a peerless genius of the demon race. How can I not have a backup plan before I do something? As long as my clone captures Mo Tiangong, what can you do to me?" Dixuan was also caught off guard. It was already too late for him to take action, as Huang Lingyao was unwilling to be with the others. The reef formation she was on was very far away. Similarly, she was also unable to save him in time. Seeing that Mo Tiangong and his successor were about to be shackled by the Prince of Dongxia's clone, a shocking lion's roar rang out from the array formation where Su Fong was previously. The roar contained a power that could split the heavens and the earth. It swept the demonic aura formed by the Prince of Dongxia's clone and sent it flying into the distance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Big Goblin flew out of the array formation one by one and guarded Mo Tiangong in the center. It turned out that Shi Ba, who had been lying in ambush in the array formation, had brought more than 100 Big Goblin out and resolved the crisis at the crucial moment. If it were any other time, these Big Goblin would not even be in the eyes of the Prince of Dongxia. However, at this moment, these great monsters only needed to delay for a while, and Di Xian would be able to free up his hands. Huang Lingyao would also be able to attack in an instant. This meant that the backup plan that the Eastern Phantom Crown Prince had prepared would also be completely destroyed. Su Fong, you've ruined my plans again. Chapter 2448. The battle within the barrier at the bottom of Soul Sinking Beach was also nearing its end. Under the frenzied attacks of Su Fang's big goblin and experts, Dong Xiaomoshing's 12 gorilla demons were left with only 3 left. The main reason why the gorilla demons could be dealt with so quickly was because of the second primordial spirit. The 12 gorilla demons were extremely powerful, but their primordial spirits were extremely weak. The second primordial spirit's attacks could even threaten venerable sovereigns, let alone these gorilla demons with weak primordial spirits. Under the pressure of the second primordial spirit, Wang, Tian, Shuizheng, is it allowed to set off the tartar oil of the tomb? Gamble? Ishimu Stuwal? Gamble? Ihuang Qianzhu? Ihuang Qianzhu? Ihuang Qianzhu? Ihuang Qianzhu, Zhong, Yu. The cooperation of the Dragonbird and Gue also displayed astonishing power. The sun god's primordial spirit released by the Dragonbird caused great damage to the gorilla demons. The sun god's arrow and sun essence fire burned thousands of holes in the gorilla demons' tough bodies. The gorilla demon's poison was extremely powerful. It could even corrode the world of peak over gods. However, to Gue, the gorilla demon's poison was the best delicacy. Hence, the terrifying gorilla demons lost most of their strength in front of Gue. Gue used the yellow spring blood sea and turned into blood water. After enveloping the gorilla demons, it immediately drilled into the gorilla demons' bodies through the wounds, devouring and corroding them. Wang Tian, in vain, Zilu loyal to the cabin of the past. Wan watching the neon robber? Yixing Huang, Qianzhu. Yihuang Qianzhu. The reason why so many gorilla demons could be suppressed so smoothly was because Su Fang had chosen such a good place. The space was filled with astonishing primordial spirit pressure. It formed a huge shackle for the gorilla demons, whose primordial spirits were already relatively weak. Hence, the strength they could display was far weaker than the big goblin and cultivators. On the other side, under the cooperation of Su Fang and Mystery's doppelganger, Dong Xiaomoshing's monstrous primordial spirit was completely suppressed. Su Fang, it seems that this saint has underestimated you. However, don't think that you can kill this saint. Even if I have to sacrifice my vitality, I will kill you. Seeing that the 12 powerful Gorb devils were all about to be killed, Dong Xiaomoshing's demonic nature erupted and he descended into madness. He hammered his chest 3 times in a row. With the first strike, a layer of blood gushed out from his body and quickly condensed into a blood body. Judging from its appearance, this bloody figure looked exactly the same as Dong Xiaomoshing, but it was a blood demon. Its aura was void, and its strength was actually roughly on par with Dong Xiaomoshing's original body. QL11, after the second punch, a layer of white demonic light shot out from his body. It quickly turned from illusory to solid and condensed into a skeleton. The last punch landed on Dong Xiaomoshing's chest. The body of Dong Xiaomoshing's true body underwent a crazy transformation, turning into the true body of the Devil Clan. He looked like a ferocious and ugly bat. This time, Dong Xiaomoshing had transformed into 3 Devil Saint powerhouses, and the situation was suddenly reversed. The Devil Clan's ability that Dong Xiaomoshing used was actually so terrifying. However, there was obviously a huge drawback to using this ability. It would bring about unbearable losses. At this time, he couldn't care so much. If he didn't fight with all his might, he would probably die here today. Your aura is getting weaker and weaker. You can't hold on for long, right? The true body of the Eastern Devil Saint looked at Shroud's clone and sneered malevolently. When your strength is exhausted, this saint will be able to easily kill Su Fang and obtain the Origin Sacred Mirror. Even if I have to suffer some losses, I can still bear it. Kikik, who knew without waiting for his laughter to fade, Mystery's clone rolled out a black blood jelly-like stone from his palm. At first glance, it looked a little like the Frost Soul Blood Fetus, but it didn't contain the blood and evil aura of the Frost Soul Blood Fetus. Instead, it was an incomparably majestic cold essence of the Nine Nether, and it emitted an incomparably powerful soul. 9 Nether Fetus Stone? Mystery's clone actually found 2 9 Nether Fetus Stones. Su Fong was surprised and happy at this time. The worry in his heart instantly disappeared. Mystery's clone opened his mouth and sucked the 9 nether feet of stone into his stomach. A domineering supreme power of the 9 nether spread out from his body. Damn it, this saint has miscalculated again. The divine light of Dongsha Moshing's original body suddenly changed. Then, with a cold shout, the blood demon clone turned into a surging blood river with a splash and swept towards Mystery's clone. His bone demon clone's figure flashed, and white bone flames burned in the cracks of his bones as he charged towards Su Fong. Mystery's original body, on the other hand, went straight for the boundary. Seeing that the situation was not good, Dongsha Moshing made a prompt decision. He didn't hesitate to sacrifice 2 of his clones to protect his original body and escape. Facing the roaring blood river that swept towards him, Mystery's clone suddenly opened his mouth and sucked. Inside his mouth, there seemed to be a hidden universe. Dark black water spiraled and exploded with a shocking, devouring power. It actually sucked the blood river formed by Dongsha Moshing's clone into his mouth. In the blink of an eye, Dongsha Moshing's original body had already escaped to the boundary of the boundary. Just as he was about to break through the boundary and escape, with a whoosh, a black Xian Guang shot towards him. The illusory primordial spirit's divine power enveloped East Demon Venerable. Then, a terrifying power that could devour primordial spirits and absorb souls crashed into his divine aperture. It was Su Fong's second primordial spirit, Night Demon's primordial spirit's divine power. How is it possible? A human's primordial spirit can actually cultivate Night Demon's divine power. Dongsha Moshing was indeed a peak expert of the demon clan who had lived for countless years. He immediately recognized Night Demon's primordial spirit's divine power from Night Demon's second primordial spirit's divine power. He was instantly shocked. He didn't care about escaping anymore. He opened his mouth and spat out a beam of demonic light. There was a demonic weapon that looked like a round disc. Rolling black Xian Guang rolled out. The divine power of the primordial spirit rushed towards Su Fong's second primordial spirit like a stormy sea. This round disc looked somewhat similar to the heavenly demon blood plate. However, the demonic characters on it were 100 times more complicated and abstruse. Its quality was also incomparable to the heavenly demon blood plate of the great world. This wasn't the heavenly demon blood plate, but the ancestral demon blood plate. The bone demon that was rushing towards Su Fong spat out a beam of white light from its mouth. It instantly turned into a world and covered Su Fong. What appeared in front of Su Fong was a surging sea of bones. On the sea of bones stood tall mountains made of human skulls. The sea of bones surged and rolled, creating huge waves that were about to swallow Su Fong. Looks like I have no choice but to take out the origin sacred mirror. Su Fong flipped his right hand, and the origin sacred mirror appeared in his palm. Chi, 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 chi. Red light shot out from the mirror and landed on the sea of bones that was sweeping towards him. It immediately ignited the raging 9 Yang primordial fire. Under the burning of the 9 Yang true fire, the aggressive sea of bones was quickly reduced to ashes. However, Dongsha Moshing's bone demon doppelganger was also extremely powerful. Even in the face of a 9 Yang primordial fire that erupted from the origin's sacred mirror, the world still didn't shatter. The sea of bones continued to surge towards Su Fong. The mountain of bones in the center of the sea of bones collapsed with a rumble. Countless skulls burned with a strange white bone fire and emitted a sharp, ear-piercing demonic sound that filled the sky. Yin-yang change. Faced with the attack of a demon saint expert, Su Fong didn't dare to be careless. He immediately used the yin-yang change and activated the origin sacred mirror. Boom! A kind of yin-yang divine power that caused the world to return to chaos swept across the world. The sea of bones and skulls that filled the sky instantly shattered layer by layer under the supreme power of the origin's sacred mirror and turned into nothingness. The world that the bone demon had created also collapsed with a loud rumble. Su Fong's figure reappeared. The Bone Devil was extremely powerful. Su Fong had used the yin-yang transformation to unleash the power of the primordial origin's sacred mirror, but he still hadn't been able to kill it. However, the Bone Devil's white bones were covered in cracks and a layer of gray. The Bone Demon looked at the origin's sacred mirror in Su Fong's hand. The bone fire in its empty eye sockets flickered. Clearly, it was extremely afraid of the origin sacred mirror's power. Su Fong activated the Heaven Supervisor token again and erupted with the power of the heavenly Tao order. It formed a shackle that shrouded the Bone Demon. Just as the Bone Demon turned around and was about to escape, Mystery's doppelganger had already devoured Dongsha Moshing's blood demon doppelganger. He looked at the Bone Demon and opened his mouth to let out a cold and domineering roar. Monstrous underworld power surged out from nothingness. It felt as if the power of the entire Nine Netherlands had been attracted by Mystery's doppelganger and bombarded the Bone Demon. In this space, at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, the surroundings were shackled by the Nether River. Even a venerable Emperor expert couldn't tear the space apart in a short time. The Bone Demon's body was shackled by Su Fong's Heaven Supervisor token and couldn't dodge the attack of Mystery's doppelganger. It was instantly crushed into powder. Heavenly Demon Bloodplate? No, that's not the Heavenly Demon Bloodplate, but the legendary ancestral Demon Bloodplate. Seeing the demonic weapon that Dongsha Moshing was activating and sensing the aura of the circular demonic weapon, Su Fong was shocked. Su Fong had suppressed many demon race experts, including demons were peerless experts of the demon race. Through soul searching, they obtained the memories of demon race experts. Therefore, they had a good understanding of the demon race in the myriad worlds. The demon race was actually divided into many races, such as the blood demon, bone demon, brute demon, and so on. Every powerful demon race was bestowed with the ancestral demon blood plate by the supreme ancestral demon. The ancestral demon blood plate was an immortal soul magic treasure. As long as one had a powerful yang spirit, they could activate it to deal with the immortal soul of a powerful enemy and restrain the yang spirit. At the same time, they could also use the ancestral demon blood plate to guard their divine aperture and defend against the immortal soul attacks of their enemies. At this moment, Dongsha Moshing was activating the ancestral demon blood plate. The divine power of his immortal soul was estimated to be close to the level of the supreme existence of the imperial people, surpassing almost all the venerable emperor experts. The second immortal soul used Night Demon's immortal soul absorbing seal to fight against Dongsha Moshing. At this moment, it was completely at a disadvantage and was about to be suppressed by the ancestral demon blood plate. At this moment, Mystery's doppelganger attacked again and uttered 4 unclear words from his mouth. 9. Nether. Return. As the cold and sinister voice reverberated in the air, a phantom image of the Nether River appeared in front of Dongsha Moshing and circled around his body. Dongsha Moshing's body rapidly turned into nothingness. His life aura was also rapidly draining away, being devoured by the phantom image of the Nether River. This sage is actually going to die in the hands of a Tao integration realm ant. This sage is unwilling. Su Fong, you won't live for long either. The 9 venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance have already entered the 9 Nether. You will definitely die. Chapter 2449. Dongsha Moshing's last words made Su Fong's heart sink. The thing he was most worried about had happened. The 9 great emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance had all come to the 9 Nether. No matter how confident Su Fong was in his own strength, he couldn't help but tremble in the face of the 9 great emperors. The Tao Defiance Alliance really thinks highly of me. They actually sent the 9 great emperors to hunt me down. It seems like they won't be satisfied until I'm dead. Strange. How did Dongsha Moshing and the Tao Defiance Alliance know my true identity? Could it be that they saw through my demon shape-shifting art? Su Fong couldn't figure it out. He suspected that there was something wrong with the demon shape-shifting art. After all, the demon shape-shifting art came from Domain Lord Wuzhen. The Prince of Dongja obviously also mastered this divine ability and used it to possess Qi Mian. Even the Prince of Dongjian knew about the demon shape-shifting art. It wasn't impossible for the Tao Defiance Alliance's experts to see through his true identity. He never thought that the evil dominator Tian Du he killed could come back to life. This was the real reason why his identity was exposed. QL-11 Chu Bingyan flew over and shouted in surprise, "Su Fong, it's really you." Su Fong suppressed the shock and worry in his heart and returned to his original state. He smiled and said, "It's really me. I never thought that the big goblin Yuan Li, whose name shook the sky beacon divine world, would actually be you, Su Fong. But makes sense. Only you, Su Fong, would have such heaven-defying divine ability and means. Amazing. You're really amazing. You can even kill a venerable emperor." Chu Bingyan had seen Su Fong's strength with his own eyes. It was reasonable for him to have such an expression towards Su Fong. Chu Bingyan was even more in awe of Mystery's clone. Su Fong did not have the time to communicate with Chu Bingyan. He sucked all the big goblin and experts under his command into Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. After this battle, the Great Yao and experts under Su Fong's command had suffered losses as well. However, the losses were not too serious. Many of his subordinates had been wounded by the Gorb demon's demonic poison. With Gui's help, they would be able to quickly recover. There were a total of 12 gorilla demons. 10 were killed, and 2 were heavily injured. What is this? What is this? Rolling step? Fermented fertilizer? Staff? Screen? Waves? Major? Longing? Rollover? Is it worth it to throw away the cowardly nephew to mute the beautiful step of 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 the mountain? Column frame, these gorilla demons did not perform well in the previous battle. That was because they were affected by the suppression of the primordial spirit in the space. Moreover, their primordial spirits were very weak, so they were easily killed or suppressed by Su Fong's experts and the big goblin. If it was outside, even if it was Wang Tian, Yueyin Luo, Xian mechanical bag, Huang Fei liner book, is Yueyin worth dumpling Wei Wei? What is this? What is this? Of the 10 gorilla demons that were killed, 7 of them were burned to ashes by the dragon bird's sun god fire and the big goblin's demon fire. Only 3 gorilla demons' corpses were left, which made Su Fong's heart ache. Those gorilla demons that were killed were all excellent cultivation resources. However, the 3 gorilla demons' corpses were enough for Gui to grow a lot. His poison would become even more powerful and could even threaten venerable emperors. After putting away the dragon bird, Gui, and the 3 gorilla demons' corpses for Gui to devour, Su Fong called his second primordial spirit back into his divine aperture. This time, his second primordial spirit was also severely injured. The black mark that it resided in was almost completely broken and covered with cracks. The second primordial spirit was also very weak. It was the ancestor devil blood plate that caused such a serious injury to his second primordial spirit. Ancestor devil blood plate. In the small world, I had the true devil blood plate. In the large world, I got the heavenly devil blood plate by a Shan ancient demon. I didn't expect to get the ancestor devil blood plate again in the myriad worlds. It seems that I am fated to have this kind of primordial spirit magic treasure of the devil race. Su Fong looked at the heavenly devil blood plate floating in the air and was very happy. The depression and suppression in his heart were instantly gone. How could he not be happy? With such a treasure, when his second primordial spirit recovered from its injuries, he could activate the ancestor devil blood plate. Together with Night Demon's primordial spirit magic, apart from the imperial people and peak experts, ordinary venerable emperors would be suppressed by the second primordial spirit's ancestor devil blood plate. Obtaining the ancestor devil blood plate was an unexpected reward for killing Dong Shamasheng. However, Su Fong also suffered heavy losses. Apart from his second primordial spirit, his main body was also severely exhausted. Continuously activating the Origin's sacred mirror, the Heaven Supervisor token, and the Prison Suppressing Codex had almost exhausted his primordial spirit, dermic powers, and yang energy. Fortunately, he had the purple Chi Dharma spirit. After fusing with the heavenly fire divine lord's purple chi dharma spirit, Su Fang's purple chi dharma spirit had undergone a transformation. It became much easier for him to control the divine artifacts. Otherwise, he would have been drained dry by activating the mirror and the two heavenly law divine artifacts in such a frenzy. It was also thanks to these supreme divine artifacts. Otherwise, how could Su Fang, who is only at the peak of the Tao integration realm, be qualified to fight with the Devil Sage's clone? The one who suffered the most losses was Shroud's clone. After killing Dongsha Moshing's main body, Shroud's clone became much more blurry. His strength actually dropped from the martial emperor realm to the level of a chief god. This was equivalent to using up to 9 nether embryonic stones. After communicating with Shroud's clone, Su Fang knew that there was not a single 9 nether embryonic stone left in the Black Mountain Range. This made his heart ache again. Fortunately, he had the Ancestor Devil Blood Plate as compensation. Otherwise, Su Fang would have vomited blood in anger. After keeping Shroud's clone into his body, Su Fang sealed the Ancestor Devil Blood Plate and stored it in his inner world. He was prepared to wait until he recovered a little before fusing with this supreme, primordial spirit Dharma treasure. Just as he finished packing everything up, Su Fang's divine light suddenly changed slightly. He immediately used the fiendish demon transfiguration technique and transformed back into the big goblin Yuan Li's appearance. Then he reminded Chu Bingyan, "Remember, don't expose my identity. Su Fang, I know what I'm doing." Chu Bingyan also heard Dongsha Moshing's dying words and knew that the matter was very serious. He nodded solemnly and agreed. Boom! The natural boundary of the space was broken, and Di Xuan and Huang Lingyao's figures appeared inside the space. Seeing the mess in the space and the remnant aura, which was obviously left behind by a battle between martial emperors, Di Xuan and Huang Lingyao were extremely shocked. Di Xuan asked Su Fang, "Is there a martial emperor hidden by Eli's side?" Su Fang returned to the big goblin's unruly and indifferent attitude. "Yes, there's a demon saint hidden in Eli's body. It is Dongsha Ma Sheng. It really is Dongsha Ma Sheng." Although Di Xuan and Huang Lingyao had already guessed it, they were still shocked once again. Huang Lingyao said in disbelief, "Yuan Li, you actually managed to survive the attack of a demon saint? What about Eli and Dongsha Ma Sheng? Survive?" Chu Bingyan rushed to answer. Not only did great elder Yuan Li survive, but he also killed both Eli and Dongsha Ma Sheng. This time, Huang Lingyao and Di Xuan found it even more unbelievable. Kill a demon saint? Even a martial emperor of Xiao Wannings's level should be able to defeat Dongsha Ma Sheng. However, if Dongsha Ma Sheng was determined to escape, it would be difficult for Xiao Wanning to stop him. A big goblin, which was equivalent to a lower chief god, actually killed Dongsha Ma Sheng? Di Xuan glanced at Su Fang, a thoughtful look flashing in his eyes. He secretly transmitted his voice. "Great Elder Yuan Li, before I killed the Prince of Dongxia, he mentioned Su Fang." Su Fang replied coldly, "How can the Lord Di Xuan take the Prince of Dongxia's nonsense seriously before he died? Let's cut the crap and hurry up and bring Master and Mo Tiangong down. Refining the nether sand is the most important thing." Nether sand. That mountain range is filled with nether sand. Only then did Di Xuan pay attention to the Black Mountain Range. After sensing the nether sand it contained, he immediately fell into ecstasy. At Soul Sinking Beach, one could only collect a dozen grains of nether sand after hard time. However, there was actually an entire mountain of nether sand here. How could Di Xuan not be pleasantly surprised? If he brought this much nether sand back to the Sky Beacon God realm, who knew how many magic treasures he could fuse with, it would play an unimaginable role in the war against the Tao Defiance in the future. Su Fang continued, "Leave some of the nether sand for me. I also want to refine my magic treasures. If we find any treasures in the mountain range, they will also belong to me. Lord Di Xuan won't have any objections, right?" Di Xuan readily agreed. If it wasn't for great elder Yuan Li, not only would it be difficult to accomplish anything, we would have suffered heavy casualties even if we weren't completely annihilated. How can I not fulfill your request? Su Fong nodded in satisfaction and flew to the front of the barrier. In his life force state, Su Fong combined the strength of his subordinates and tore a crack in the barrier. Then, he passed through the barrier in embarrassment. This scene shocked Dixuan once again. Su Fong had just fought a great battle with a venerable emperor, yet he still had the strength to easily tear the barrier. His strength was truly astonishing. As soon as he returned to the shore of soul-sinking beach, Su Fong immediately entered the formation on the reef and took out the universal river chariot. I must recover my strength as soon as possible and enter the yin-yang heavenly wheel before the 9 venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance find me and save my grandfather's soul. Su Fong activated the power of his purple aura spirit to control the magic treasure. With the help of the universal river chariot's origin spirit, he barely managed to activate the universal river chariot. The universal river chariot could activate the power of time, stop, every 1,000 years. Under such a state, Su Fong cultivated in the universal river chariot for 1,000 years while the time outside was still. It had been more than 1,000 years since the last time he activated the universal river chariot. In addition, with the transformation of his purple aura spirit, Su Fong's ability to control magic treasures had multiplied. At this time, when Su Fong activated the universal river chariot, the power it released became even more astonishing. After the universal river chariot was activated, nearly 3,000 years had passed while the time outside was still in a state of stillness. This was equivalent to giving Su Fong 3,000 years of free time. Such a strange and powerful power of time was truly heaven-defying. Su Fongdao wantonly devoured pills and spirit items, especially spirit items that contained pure yang essence and blood crystals that contained vitality.